I'd like the meeting to order at 6 o'clock. Thank you all very much for coming tonight. Would invite you to stand and join me in the pledge of allegiance. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We heard from Christy. She's still out of town.
No, but yeah, I think at the last meeting she mentioned she was gonna be.
Yeah, she's like 11 and a half hours difference. So it's not. She said she wasn't gonna be here.
Okie dokie. All right, public comments. This is an opportunity for members of the audience to address the council. If you would like to speak or address the council, please get my attention and make sure that you mention your name and where you're from.
Rick Jessel Stevenson. I'd like to talk about the sewer ordinance. The intent of the sewer committee by Tracy Gatto's January 12th report, the result was, quote, success entails ensuring a fair distribution of financial implications that avoids imposing excessive costs on residents transitioning from septic to sewer and extending sewer lines. So I wanted to thank the city council, the city staff, and also the sewer committee members for all their hard work and contributions. The concerns I have are in section E of the policy of 1308. It says section E, ratepayers are expected to pay rather than developers, whereas the sewer committee definitely said developers, multi-family housing or commercial buildings should pay to extend. And right now, according to a city planning map, perhaps in the next 10, 15 years, we're going to have a lot of annexation north of Stevenson. The Stevenson part is multicolored at the bottom. The potential annexations where there will be developments would be at the top. So this doubles the Stevenson city limits. So there's going to be a lot of development, a lot of money sloshing around, and certainly developers would be expected to pay for the sewer lines. There's also 151 vacant lots, 19 of which are 3 to 20 acres. So those are potentially developable. And there are 5 from 2 to 3 acres, and they're developable. So there could be a lot of development, and certainly we're going to get a lot of housing pressure here. And it's going to take a while to pay for the sewer lines, but it could be done with the existing codes from the sewer committee. So I wanted to point that out. Again, the sewer committee recommends funding from grants when available, low interest loans, and some cumulative reserve funds might be considered also. The second concern I have is footnote 3. It's always the footnotes. Installation or expansion of the owner's septic system will not be approved unless the lot owner agrees to pay a proportionate share of the cost to make sewer available to the property. So this could be like a running foot in front of a person's lot, or it could be a minor fee. It's very much up in the air, and I'm sure that would cause a good deal of concern among various parties, developers, residents, potential buyers. Could be like $400 a running foot in front of a 100-foot lot. That'd be 40 grand. it was 250 feet, it'd be 110 grand. So that's a lot of money. I'm concerned about, section F and section E. And also, particularly about footnote, 3. I do, think that the sewer committee and, recommendations from the city staff go a long way towards, leveling the playing field. But, certainly the intent of the sewer committee was not to, victimize any particular group, except the financial guys that are gonna make a lot of money that they should pay. So, you know, the little guys shouldn't pay, but let's make the developers, the guys that are gonna make the money, pay. So thank you very much.
There's a list here, I don't know.
And I would have that list. Kelly, did you have something else besides your presentation? All right, Mary?
Me? Okay, thank you, Mary Rapars. Good evening. Nice day out there today. I hope y'all had some time to get some vitamin D. I've been out all day. It's been wonderful. First, I want to say I would like the council to direct the planning commission to start looking at and the council itself to think about public access in our community. I think anytime anything is developed, we should have public access in it, and any development should include that. And that should be part of the process. And we should not be giving away our public easements and our public access. And as you know, I did file an appeal about the project over on Rock Creek. And there will be a site visit. The Shoreline Hearings Board will be here on May 17th to see that area. And I urge you all to go online and read all the documentation. Public access isn't easy to come by, and you shouldn't give it away once you have it. We need more public access, not less, in our community, and that should be part of planning. Like, if you have public access, that's it. No developer can take it away from you. Second, on the sewer issue, it should be equitable. You should pay for what you're using, and that was one of the things that was not equitable, as it was reported that some high users were not paying their fair share. So we should all be paying our fair share for the sewer system. I went to the presentation about the courthouse plaza the other night, and I'm appalled. $4.2 million is not acceptable. And the amount of acreage that's being taken away and the trees that would be cut, I thought it was going to be minimized, not made more. We've gone from 3.5 million to 4.2 million. That should remain an open space. It's one of the more public open spaces that we have in our community. And let's take care of the things that we have already, instead of building something new that we will have to take care of for the next 30 or 40 years. And 4.2 million is not going to come from us. It will come from the taxpayers of America. So leave the lawn alone, and let's move on to other projects that are more beneficial for the entire community. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, there have been some changes to the agenda as noted in the agenda. I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda items A through F. 3.
Second.
The first and second, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Sheriff's Office report.
That's good. Any questions about the documents that have been supplied to you?
Oh, sure.
Yes, sir.
What number, what unit, yeah, badge number is, Uminski?
17, I believe.
17? How is it that, number 5, he's got a lot of, time spent, a lot of overtime. And I know that that's on Stevenson time, it's county time, but can you explain to me why he's looks like
About number 5 or number 17,
number 5?
as far as overtime goes? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
His overtime is because other officers have been allowed to take that overtime, but they've neglected and chosen not to do so. He's willing to cover those gaps within our schedule, himself, because the other officers don't want to do it.
Can I ask who number 5 is?
Nope.
Okay, just curious.
Sorry. Just,
I know
we
what you're
can't openly talk about an employee issue.
Oh, no, I just was,
There you go.
oh,
Understood. So, and it shows, number 17 has, it's put on 1,065 miles. Has he been certified?
Not this time, but
So how do we as a county allow an uncertified officer out there on the road?
as county has always done in the past, an officer when they're hired and even prior to going to the academy are given a unit to commute back and forth. And he's currently going through a training process.
Dave? I can appreciate that, Trace,
That's not new.
but you know, we can't do a lot of things now that we used to do. That doesn't take away the liability. I'm really concerned about that.
Okay, thank you.
That's all I got.
okay. I have a few questions, and I think, Under Sheriff Wyckoff, did you happen to watch the CJTC hearing regarding probably number 17 that where a sheriff testified, she was trying to, for basically get the certification cut short. And then they decided, CJTC said they wouldn't do that. I'm just curious if you watched that video. Okay. Who did the background investigation for number 17?
Who did that?
Yeah.
I couldn't say right off the top of my head right now. It would have been one of the detectives though.
Do you have any concerns yourself about the fact that this employee basically was resigned in lieu of termination from another department? And the
It
only
was
other,
my decision to make.
I'm just asking you if you had any concerns as under sheriff about that.
I don't have any concerns at this time.
Did you ever have any concerns?
No, sir.
Okay, and just one last question. Do you happen to know right now, the city of Stevenson, how much we're paying the sheriff's department for 2024 for services? You happen to know that?
Exact number?
Well, just approximately.
Not off the top of my head.
I think it's probably about $250,000, I think. Is that right, Dave?
No,
Yeah, what is it?
no,
Yes.
I'm not sure. what it
Okay.
is.
But okay, could you get that number for me and email it to me?
For the 25 budget?
24, yeah, for 2024. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. That way it's in the uppermost in your mind as well.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Kelly O'Malley McKee, Executive Director from the Stevenson Downtown Association.
Good evening. I'm Kelly O'Malley McKee. I've been the executive director for the Stevenson Downtown Association, which is the Stevenson Main Street program within the state of Washington since 2020. I started 2 days before COVID hit our community. It was quite the time to start this job. So I've been here for 4 years now, working to help revitalize downtown Stevenson, and enrich our local heritage. And I've lived in Stevenson since 2016, and my husband Joel is a 4th generation Skamania County hometown boy. I am coming to share with you the impact that we made as a nonprofit organization in our community in 2023. So I apologize for a few months behind schedule, but I'm here to do that, and also just always wanting to spread the local love. So we've got stickers to pass around, and we've got little notebooks to pass around. And don't worry, crowds, you'll get this too. And then our impact statement. So this is kind of based on what I'll be sharing a PowerPoint on. Excuse me. As well.
Can I have more than one local love?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, thank you. I just need all I can get.
So for those who don't know, the Stevenson Downtown Association's mission is to promote and revitalize downtown Stevenson and enrich our local heritage. And separate from a mission, we have a strategy. Our main strategy is called a transformation strategy in the Main Street world. And that strategy is to activate the downtown district through placemaking and business support to make it the preferred destination for Stevenson area residents to spend their time and money. So I briefly mentioned we're a Washington Main Street community here in Stevenson. That means we are one of 38 communities throughout the state that are designated Washington Main Street communities. And then there's 38 additional affiliates throughout our state, which I'll go into a little later, but being a community versus an affiliate is a very coveted position to be in. We are able to earn money through a B&O tax credit program, and that's our primary source of funding. We'll get down to that in a little bit. But the Washington Main Street program helps towns and cities throughout the state help revitalize their local economy, the appearance and the image of the downtown commercial districts. So we're also affiliate of Main Street America, and as an affiliate, we're part of this national network of communities like ours who share a commitment to advancing shared prosperity, creating resilient economies, and improving our quality of life. And being a part of this Main Street America network means that we're nationally recognized, but locally powered. So as I mentioned, we're a nonprofit organization. We're volunteer powered, we're volunteer driven, and all Main Street organizations utilize the Main Street approach, and that's a time-tested method for a framework for revitalizing downtowns and commercial districts, particularly of historic importance. And doing so, that means we embrace these 4 points. They're called the Main Street 4 points. And so that's economic vitality, design, promotion, and outreach. And that means that we have committees for each of those. And those are all volunteer-driven committees. And it also separates us out from other nonprofits that are doing great work. For example, the Chamber of Commerce, which is really business focused, and we are as well with our economic vitality piece, but we also very interested in the design of downtown and what that means to be a historic downtown, what it means to create place for our community. Promotion is all about, of course, promoting our businesses and our downtown district. And then outreach, that's all about our fundraising and our volunteerism. So by using this like 4-point approach, this all also happens with key partnerships. So in all of these Main Street communities throughout the land, they have excellent partnerships with their cities, because all of these downtowns, of course, are within their cities. So Main Street organizations are successful with that key partnership. And locally, we are very lucky to have wonderful partners in you all and the staff and the mayor, of course, who is one of our founding members of this nonprofit, prior to being mayor, of course. And I mentioned earlier, it's about place-based economic development. So that's why we are behind the Park Plaza 100%. That's why, because, things like the Park Plaza, there's countless studies and best practices that show when you create a community gathering place or expand on one, of which in this case, we already have people coming to that area, and the plaza will help enhance everybody's experience as well. We can go down that road, obviously, and that's not why I'm here today, but I'm happy to talk further about that anytime. And my favorite quote that I use in every single presentation is from Ed McMahon, not the Ed McMahon, but the Ed McMahon, who's the chair of the board of directors of the National Main Street Center. And that is, downtown is important because it's the heart and soul of any community. If you don't have a healthy downtown, you simply don't have a healthy town. So we made a big impact in 2023, thanks to you, thanks to all of our volunteers, thanks to our financial supporters. So let's go through some of our highlights of 2023. So we increased community volunteerism by tracking 130 individuals in our community who gave their time to our projects and committee work. And we tallied up over 2,800 volunteer hours. And that's a 76% increase over last year. And nonprofits love equating their volunteer time to what that means financially, because of course, people are donating their expertise and their physical labor and all sorts of things like that. And we totaled that to be a cash equivalent of over $80,000 invested in our downtown. Some fun volunteer photos, because, it's all about volunteers. So we also were able to enhance our downtown holiday lighting. We invested in a bright, big lit snow globe photo display. We partnered with the high school metal shop to fabricate nude large snowflakes and lit trees. And we invited 7 community organizations for a Christmas tree invitational. And we hosted a decorating contest with businesses for community engagement and voting. And our volunteers on that project increased their volunteerism 27% from the year prior. All of those lights you see, with the exception of very tall poles, because that is city partner, all of the rest of the lights were all put up by volunteers. And there's the 7 invitational trees. So we also have been really successful with our Bricks and Clicks grant program. This is a really common theme amongst Main Street communities and organizations, where the money they raise, they want to reinvest in their downtown district. So we borrowed, Main Streeters love to do that too. We borrowed from other communities and created our own grant program. So in 23, we distributed 5 Bricks and Clicks grants to downtown businesses and property owners. And collectively, it's a total of 40 grants that we've given to those folks in our downtown, and that's since October of 2020 when we began the program.
Kelly, how much money does that equate out to?
They are up to $1,000 grants,
Okay.
so, that's for, about 40,000 that we've reinvested directly to business owners and property owners. But that doesn't count for, which we are now starting to track, doesn't count for what they spent, right? So, some of their projects might be $5,000 or more, in which case, we then invest 1,000 and they've invested 4. And so we are starting to track that this year to see what's our overall impact by instigating this.
Thank you.
Simplex recipients. So we erected the seasonal Stevenson Streetery. That's something that we, of course, started in COVID to help the businesses with takeout. And then when we took it away, then everyone was like, what are you doing? We want it back. So it was supposed to be just a one and done project, but due to community feedback, we decided to bring it back. So last year was our 3rd year. We're in plans right now for a 4th year. We've got a waiting list for artists who want to participate. But of course, this is this community gathering place in the heart of downtown, where last year we had 14 picnic tables that were built by the high school woodshop students and then painted by local artists. And then we auction them off at the end to help raise money for the next iteration of the streetery. So we raised 22% more last year than the year prior. And this year, I'm gonna dangle a little teaser. It's not all picnic tables. So in our 4th year, we recognize that we've gotten rid of a lot of, we've auctioned off a lot of picnic tables. So people might be a little, might be maxed out on their picnic table. We are really proud to say that one of our local businesses owners, Tabitha Wiggins, was presented the Entrepreneur of the Year at the Washington Main Street Conference. There were 11 various awards given out at that conference, and she won that one as an exemplary Main Street leader. She did serve as our board president for several years. And also obviously opened a brand new business in addition to being the co-owner of Walking Man. So for those of you who don't know, we absorbed the Stevenson Farmers Market a couple of years ago. And while it has been in operation for, I think, over 15 years, we absorbed it to help give it a little boost. We recognize it is a perfect synergy of our mission. It's place-based economics. It brings people together. It really builds community. It supports the micro enterprise businesses. So last year was our 2nd year of overseeing the market, and we were able to increase vendors by 7%, attendance by 6%, and then overall sales by 40%. So we're really excited about those metrics. And this year we do have a new market manager, and we just know that we're gonna be able to continue this momentum, and we're really excited about how the market is panning out. Lots and lots of produce. We heard the community complain, and we brought it. We experienced the problem of vendors leaving at the end of market with fresh food. We do not want that. So tell everybody we've got vegetables. Organization rallied the community to Love Local on Plaid Friday, which is a fun, relaxed way to support local businesses as an alternative to Black Friday, where the big box stores get all that attention. We really want to hone in on loving local. So folks wore plaid and got special discounts all throughout the community. And then we distribute the Love Local reusable shopping totes. And we increased sales last year for 71% of the reporting businesses year over year. Super fun volunteerism in preparing for this promotion, and then the day of, just going around and seeing everybody wearing plaid and sharing or toting around their totes. Those are the totes on the left. So that was wonderful. We expanded community partnerships last year. We supported 4 existing events that already bring residents to downtown. So we decided to help boost National Night Out, Trunk or Treat, the band concert in the highway, and the Chamber's Sip and Stroll. Then, of course, we partnered with the city on several initiatives, including the parking study, the downtown tree survey, the new city parks plan, which I found out is something that we definitely need, not just for the Park Plaza project, but we're like one of the only communities who don't have them. So that was great to finally get that locked in. Beautification, of course, we partner with that, with our Spruce Up Stevenson. We work on signage, and then, of course, the Park Plaza project. So it was just us out and about, volunteers out and about in the community. Band concert on the highway. We were lucky enough to host a national Main Street workshop here. We partnered with Vancouver's Downtown Association, where they 40 revitalization professionals from across the United States spent one day here and one day in Vancouver, and it was a really great compare and contrast of the small community versus larger communities. We culled through massive amounts of data that Main Street America generously gifted to us. And the bonus of these attendees, these other executive directors across the country, collectively spent over $3,000 in just their, it wasn't even a half day. It was like 2 hours in our downtown. So that was great. We completed the Vintage Panel Mural project when we unveiled a fair panel mural in honor of the 115th year of the Mania County Fair and Timber Carnival. It was painted by a local artist, Don Nielsen, and this completed a series of panel murals that are throughout downtown. A project that started way before I was here. It began in late 2018 with the Keep Skamania Green mural that's on the side of Napa, and the Ava Jane Ferry mural on the side of Clark and Lewis. So that wraps up that one, and then stay tuned for our next mural program that our committee is working on right now and developing. And we know it will be bigger and better than that. So we coordinate Spruce Up Stevenson, the community cleanup day. Last year we had 75 community volunteers. They tallied 185 hours. And then 50 of them dined in our downtown establishments afterwards. So that was great. And in case you don't know, this year's Spruce Up Stevenson is Saturday, April 27th. 9 a.m. to noon. We're handing out $15 coupon vouchers for folks to dine in downtown businesses for lunch after they volunteer their time. I also have a bunch of posters. Okay, so I mentioned one of the benefits about being a Main Street community in Washington State is that we are part of, we are able to take part in the Washington Main Street Tax Credit Incentive Program. We are one of the only states in the nation who does this, and essentially it allows businesses who pay their B&O tax to redirect their tax instead of going up to Olympia back here to us. Only Main Street communities like the Stevenson Downtown Association are able to take part in this. So we were able to raise $208,000 last year. And again, that's our primary source of funding to then put back into the community. And third, we had 30 businesses participate last year in that. That's everybody who participated. Thank you. So as I wrap it up, just a friendly reminder that alone we can do so little and together we can do so much. Volunteer power, partnerships, all of that, so important for our little community and for those across the state, but more importantly here in downtown Stevenson. And thank you to City Council, to Mayor, to city staff for your ongoing support and partnership. It's all about partnership and volunteerism. And so thank you. Thank you for loving local. And then hopefully, yes, I think you all got those things. Do you have any questions?
Those food coupons, do they cover beer?
That is up to the business.
Okay, I'm just curious. I'm asking that question on behalf of the community, not on behalf of me.
Asking for a friend.
The B and O tax,
Yes.
does Olympia get to keep any of that? Or does it all come back here?
25%.
Well, they keep all the B and O taxes unless the business signs up for this. So
Okay,
we get 100% of what the business pledges to give us.
okay. But it doesn't cost the business any more to do that, correct?
Well, there's a 20, so it's so confusing. It's such an easy program and yet so complex to describe. So if the business decides to pledge $1,000 of their B&O taxes, they will sign up for that through the Department of Revenue. We see that they make out their check to us, and then they receive a 75% tax credit on against their taxes the following year. So essentially there's 25% there that is can be seen as like a charitable contribution since we're a 501c3.
Okay,
However, when when folks are paying these taxes anyway, it's like it ends up being this kind of, if you're participating every year, it ends up being kind of this cycle that you see when people go to their Department of Revenue site and they're paying their taxes zero.
yeah, yeah,
If they've decided to contribute in that way.
okay, thank you.
Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you.
We do have a hand up.
I forgot. to do it.
Okay.
It's loading.
So will that first portion not be on YouTube later?
We'll load it tomorrow. We have to download the video,
Okay,
convert it, and then upload it, and it
Okay.
takes some time.
okay. So eventually. they'll
recording.
go. Okay. Thank you.
Gotta love technology.
That's good.
Okay.
Can you tell me if the air conditioner is warning at all?
Probably not. We haven't switched over. It's been on heat.
Really?
Do you want me to switch it?
Yeah.
Okay. Did you want to take the comment?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi, Casey.
Oh, hi, can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. This is Casey Smith. Thanks for coming back to me. I know the public comment section ended, but I appreciate the courtesy here. Yeah, I was born in Stevenson, born and raised in Stevenson. I now live in Seattle. I'd love to move back to Stevenson one day. And so I watch your guys' city council meetings, sometimes live, sometimes, well, rarely live, but mostly after the fact. And I appreciate everything you guys do, and you guys that step up for the community and serve on council. Really appreciate that. And a few weeks ago, Mary Rapar mentioned the public easement issue down on Rock Cove, and that struck a chord with me. And so I did some reading on it and have seen the proposed project site. And I think this does need, I think the council should speak up as soon as possible, either when it's with the planning commission, or yeah, I'm not sure the exact process, but I just think the council needs to really think about this carefully. We have a great walking path that goes on the water for a big portion of Rock Cove. And as I mentioned this to my friends and family that still lives in the area, everyone is like, oh, I was just walking on that path the other day, or I was running on that path. And we need to really consider whether we want that path to have to go away from the water for the interests of a private business. I wouldn't like that as a walker or runner or enjoyer of nature. Going through a parking lot is not an acceptable alternative. And so I think the city should do everything in their power to maintain a waterfront public easement. Yeah, that's all I have on that. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Casey.
Thank you.
Adam?
You want me to just stay here? It's okay.
Sure. Works for me, whatever makes you comfortable.
So, earlier this year, I approached Juliana about, basically discussing the formalizing, an agreement where the county would pay, for probation services. And, Juliana thought it might be helpful for me to come and actually talk to the, council about sort of more generally the kind of the way that the county and the city interact on criminal justice issues. As you guys know, I mean, you obviously contract with the sheriff's office for law enforcement services, you contract with the district court to handle Stevenson Municipal Court, we contract with the county prosecutor's office to handle municipal prosecution for the city. And with the jail to house municipal court inmates. So in general, I think the county really appreciates the kind of partnership that we have with the city in terms of trying to do these things. I think that the county has and can provide them much less expensively for the city than if the city were to have to go out and kind of hire people to do these things on their own. I know there's when I came to Skamania County 20 some odd years ago, the Stevenson had its own judge. Stevenson had its own prosecutor. As far as I know, Stevenson's never had their own law enforcement, but North Bonneville for a very short period of time actually decided to have their own chief of police. And I think if you kind of look at those things historically, it's really clear that the county-city partnership has been really, really good for the city. And again, the county appreciates wanting to be a good partner for that. I do think historically the city's gotten a really good deal on this. And one of the reasons that I agreed to kind of hold off on talking about the probation thing is I know that the city recently signed a new contract with the sheriff's office, and it's a pretty significant increase in terms of the amount the city's paying for the sheriff's office. So we didn't want to just kind of heap more and more and more onto the city. But I did think it was important to kind of start a conversation with this. So, and if I'm saying things that you guys already know, just tell me, I already know that, whatever. But cut me off because I don't want to waste your time. But in particular, with probation, as far as I know, there may not be any agreement in terms of how the county provides probation services for city defendants, right, or municipal court defendants. What in practice happens is that when the court will impose, we now charge, I believe, $50 a month to the probationers themselves. And that money gets paid to the district court, which then pays it to the city. And then the city turns around and writes the county back a check for basically exactly what is paid for by the probation. Now,
I want to clarify.
Yeah.
This doesn't go through City Hall. This is all through the courts, and it's a checking account that we don't have any control over, so it's not on our financials. It's wholly owned by the court system.
That's
So
kind of convoluted, isn't it?
It,
it's extremely complex.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, and so one of the things that
Peter to pay full.
one of the things that means essentially, because not every municipal court defendant, probationer, I should say, actually pays their probation fees. So sort of the effect of this kind of not having any sort of agreement to actually have probation for municipal court defendants is the county basically subsidizes the probation for the city for anybody who is either indigent, right, or who just doesn't pay, right? I mean, just for whatever reason, you know, maybe they abscond from probation and end up, you know, just disappearing and not paying, and eventually everything gets written off. So, so what that means is that the city ends up paying a small percentage of the actual cost of supervising municipal court defendants. Now, the county, and, I've talked to Chris Wood, who's our new probation officer. We don't expect, and the county doesn't expect, that the city is actually going to, kind of pay a proportional share of the cost of probation. The county knows that this is like we have a county probation office, and the $50 a month that we require probationers to pay, even if every single one of those probationers paid the $50, right, had the ability to pay and actually paid the $50, it would not cover the cost of having the county probation office as it's now situated. I mean, we could have a smaller one, and there might be a way to do that. But as it turns out, a lot of people are indigent, and especially people that end up going through the court system. And so they just don't pay. And that's, like I said, it's part of the cost of being in government, right? Is that we pay for things for people that can't afford it. And it turns out that the people that actually pay the full amount of their probation costs tends to be a relatively small percentage of the people that are actually that it's actually imposed on. And so to give you sort of some kind of basic numbers to think about, you can look at just the court's website for the actual case numbers. And I just looked really briefly at the numbers for the last 3 years, and I actually didn't even look at the full numbers for 2023 because my printout was older. I actually printed it out when Liana and I first started thinking about this. But the numbers are relatively consistent. Stevenson municipal cases tend to be about 20% of, if you include all of Stevenson plus district court, unincorporated Screen County and North Bonneville cases. North Bonneville turns out to be a tiny percentage. For whatever reason, there's very little crime in North Bonneville. But it's pretty consistent. In 2021, it was 21% of our cases. 2022 is 21% of our cases. 2023, at least through August, it was about 19% of the cases. I talked to Chris Wood, because I didn't go through and do individual case counts, just relying on the court's website for that. But Chris actually has statistics on who's on probation in his office. And so it varies over time. Like every month you'll have some people added to his list, some people come off his list as people again, either kind of just disappear or complete probation successfully and are sort of excused from it. But sort of average numbers, he's been supervising about 250 people at any particular time. It's just a lot of people, and it's why the county recently increased our probation office to 2 people so that he wouldn't essentially be overwhelmed by the caseload. And for him, pretty consistently about 20% of those. The numbers that he gave me were just from one snapshot in time, but it was 250 total and 50 from Stevenson. Again, I think right now it's more like 230, but the Stevenson numbers are still around 50-ish. So again, it's mostly consistent with the total number of cases that are handled, which makes a lot of sense. I mean, there's no reason to think that Stevenson cases would be different from county cases or Bonneville cases. So if you imagine, right, that all of the 50 people that were on his caseload paid the $50 a month, sort of as a way of approximating, because again, if that were the case, if we could, it'd be about probably $30,000 or $40,000 short of paying for the entire probation office. But that would be approximately, I can't do the math in my head real well, 2,500 dollars a month. In 2023, the actual revenue that the county got, basically because of only about a fourth of the people ended up paying, was $7,179. So you can see that about 3/4 of the cost of supervising municipal court probationers is being subsidized by the county at this point. And again, I want to just reiterate that we're not asking the city to immediately start writing us a check for $30,000 a year, right? Which is approximately what it would cost, the full cost of doing that. But we do think that over time, we'd like to see that number get closer to what the actual costs are, and at least start a conversation about how to structure a contract for probation that would at least give us a little bit more kind of budget certainty, right? So instead of relying on, we don't know how many people are going to pay their actual probation costs month to month, how many people are going to be determined to be indigent and either have it written off or do community service in lieu of it. But at some point, like I said, we'd like to see that that amount get sort of closer to what the actual costs are. Again, maybe, and it'll probably never be, and we don't expect it to ever be, sort of, a 1-for-1, dollar for dollar, Stevenson has to pay every single cent of the whatever. And that, I think that's mostly consistent with how the other cost, they call it cost sharing and partnership that we have in terms of the criminal justice system. Because like, if you look at the, certainly the cost of the court, the Stevenson is 20% of the cases in municipal court. I know they don't pay anywhere close to the actual cost of having 20% of the actual cost of having court. I'm guessing that it's, probably not even 5% of the cost, but, with respect to prosecution, it's been the same thing. We had a contract, I think, starting in 2011, and maybe last year was the first time we even asked for any increase to that contract. So, like I said, we've been trying to work cooperatively with the city, do things that are helpful to the city, but also allow the county to, recoup some of the costs of doing that work. I thought I would share also, just sort of anecdotally, some of the sort of hidden subsidies that the city gets, just in terms of the way that for example, the jail contract goes. And I'll just share just one quick anecdote about a case that we had sometime in 2023. There was a defendant who had a case in the county. It was a county case. It was a serious case, and he had a lot of criminal history, and there were mandatory minimums associated with his sentence. And then he had a city case that was also very serious and had mandatory minimums associated with its, with the sentence. And he had a lot of extra history. So even the mandatory minimums were not sort of appropriate for his sentence. And I couldn't tell you exactly what the numbers were on this because I don't remember it. I just remember it, sort of when it happened, it sort of struck me as being something that maybe you as city council members aren't aware that goes on and aren't aware that this is a way that the county kind of subsidizes the city's criminal justice obligations. And so the recommended sentence for this individual was basically 60 days in 60 days in jail on one charge and 60 days in jail on another, consecutive to each other, it'd be a total of 120 days. And so the judge sort of unilaterally, just on his own, without, decided to shift that so that it would be, and again, I'm not going to give you the exact numbers, but essentially this would happen. There'd be 90 days served for the city, 30 days served by the city and 90 days served by the county. And so what that did is it basically saved the city 30 times whatever the jail contract is, it $65? $460. So it's, $1,800. And if that happens, even 4 or 5 times a year, that's about $10,000 in, essential subsidy, just because the judge is aware that the city has to pay the daily amounts and takes that into account. Unfortunately, what that means is that gives the jail less revenue, makes it harder for the whatever, and it's just dollars that the county has to pick up ultimately. And again, we're not suggesting that the city needs to pay the county a ton more on this, but I think one thing that the city might think about sort of moving into the future in terms of when we contract, and I know we have contracts for almost everything. I think the only thing right now that we're not contracting for is the probation services, is finding a way to contract that doesn't create asymmetries in costs such that the judge can, the judge could do the other way around. The judge could say, hey, I'm going to give 90 days in the city and 30 days in the county. And then the city's now on the hook for, a ton more money, right? And over time, I think it should be our goal to have a criminal justice system that doesn't really distinguish a lot between a similar crime that happens in the county and a similar crime that happens in the city, and finding a way to contract with the county that gives the county some sort of additional budget certainty. So we know what we're going to get every year from the city, so it doesn't vacillate, and also helpful to the city so that you don't end up, having, I'll tell you another anecdote just to give an example of how one small thing can make a big deal. But anyway, one thing that will make your budget fluctuate a ton. North Bonneville, we have 2 examples, one from the city of Camas and one from the city of North Bonneville. Well, I don't know, 5-6 years ago, we actually had to have a trial in the city of North Bonneville, and the Bonneville had maybe 1 trial in 10 years, very unusual. And the county just does the prosecution work for a flat fee, which is very little, right? But the defense attorney worked hourly. So it ended up being like a very long trial. It was like 2 days. The defense attorney ended up billing the city of Bonneville something like $5 or $6 grand, which is more than their entire budget for criminal or public defense for the entire year. And now, again, we don't have any control over the public defense thing. That's another issue, but it's just an example of how one issue can make a big difference. I think Councilmember Cox will even remember this. There was the city of Camas actually had a defendant who had committed a really serious crime, or serious enough that they went through a trial and ended up sentencing that defendant to 3 full years in jail. And so, and they ended up contracting with the sheriff's office for that defendant to serve every single one of those days in jail. They ended up spending $71,000 just to house that defendant over those 3 years. And so to give you an example of, like I said, how one issue like that can make a big difference, the cost of housing one individual for one day, I think it was $60 a day. I think the new contract is $65 a day. I'd say that, some people may have heard about the controversy up in Clickitat County where they're talking about closing their jail down and whatever. My understanding is that their alternative is to take people to the Dalles, and my understanding is that they're charging $105 a day for per inmate for defendants over there. So it gives you an idea just how reasonable the county's jail services are. But in addition to that, so my understanding I just talked to the jail superintendent a few days ago, and my understanding is that the approximate amount that the city paid for jail services last year was about $22,000. And it was based on 385 basically inmate days. So it wasn't one inmate, it was 71 different inmates spent a total of 385 days in the Schenectady County Jail. If you just had one guy like that guy from Camas, it would literally, that happens in Stevenson, it would literally double the city's jail costs in a year, which, like I said, I don't know enough about the city's finances to know whether, an extra $25,000 is a big deal, or it's, we got that, no problem, right? But it seems like a lot of money to me, right? And so finding ways to both sort of make sure the judge doesn't have to worry about which court he sentences people to, right? And also give the sheriff's office some certainty that they know they're going to get, they're going to house, at least, say, for example, 385, 400, 450, whatever the number would be, jail inmates per year from Stevenson. So they can sort of mentally reserve those beds, because they also contract, I think they still contract with the city of Camas. I think they still contract with maybe the city of Washougal and Battleground. They used to contract with the city of White Salmon, but I think White Salmon switched to the Clickitat County Jail, and I don't know what they're going to do as a result of if it turns out that Clickitat closes their jail. Anyway, it's a lot of just anecdotes and details and dollar signs, and we're not asking the city to do anything except kind of be aware of some of these cost issues, because 20 years ago the county just didn't think about this stuff. They had tons of money, right? And that's less and less the case. And so we're just being more mindful of our ability to kind of provide these services effectively, and make sure that, like I said, we're again, without bankrupting the city, you're trying to squeeze every single dollar that we can out of you guys. Make sure, at least on some of these issues that really are potentially an issue for the county, like probation, that we're at least making sure you guys understand it. So when we go to Liana and say, hey, we'd like to do something different, like I said, something that gives us a little more certainty about what we're going to get every year, and gets us a little closer to sort of the paying for the actual cost of the service. So anyway, I'm happy to answer any questions about that stuff, but
Okay, yeah, I have a couple questions. You had mentioned, so right now, maybe Leanna can help. What does the city of Stevenson contract? Do we have a contract with the probation stuff? I understood how that circular thing works, but do we have other contracts with your office for specific dollar amounts?
yeah,
With the PA's office. So
the
what?
city contracts with, city
Yeah,
contracts.
right.
with the
So
county.
what? How much is that?
I believe the city contract with prosecutor is approximately $1,500 a month,
Okay.
approximately.
Okay.
Again, I don't know what the number is with the courts, but again, and you asked the question about the sheriff's office. I don't know. I can tell you the jail, it's just per day, it's $65 a day.
So let's say you have two cases, and let's say One is right inside the city limits of Stevenson. In the exact same case, let's say two guys go and each commit a crime. One, they murder this person inside of Stevenson and this person right outside the county, outside of Stevenson city limits. And they do it the same day. So then all Stevenson city residents also pay county taxes. So then on those two murders, then would have this hypothetical case, hopefully it stays that way. But then what's the difference? I'm trying to understand the difference. Why so the Stevenson residents would still pay a county tax, just the same as outside the city limits. So what happens in that case? So it seems like per capita, it looks like we're paying again a second amount because we're within the city limits. That's the part I'm confused about.
Yeah, so, the city doesn't pay anything for, felony prosecution. So
Okay, yeah.
all felonies are.
Or
prosecuted by
whatever,
county.
but whatever, let's say it's a crime that, maybe that was another one of my questions I should ask first. What falls under, what constitutes a crime that would be on your charging sheet would be city of Stevenson versus?
Well, if it happens in the city of Stevenson and it violates either Stevenson, municipal code or the RCWs, which I believe that the Stevenson has
Okay.
adopted all the RCWs anyway.
So that would be helpful because now I'm understanding, because the city of Stevenson has its own codes that you would be enforcing that would not exist outside the city of Stevenson.
Well, they could, but also, I mean, the city has an obligation to have a
Okay,
court and to prosecute crimes. It's
okay,
not-
this is just what I was trying to
Yeah, yeah.
understand. I'm not being argumentative.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And it's a good question. Not everybody understands kind of the dynamic. Like, for example, the city isn't required to have the contract with the sheriff's office, for example, but they are required to have a chief of police if they don't, right?
Mhm.
So if you don't, and you also are required to, probably pay for dispatch services and whatever. I'll give you an example of sort of that part of it, as it applies to what I understand happened in North Bonneville. Again, you guys can go back and look at the numbers if you're interested in it. I'm sure Brian Sabo would, or Mayor Sabo would be happy to share it with you, but I don't remember the exact amount the city of North Bonneville was paying the sheriff's office to, basically patrol in North Bonneville. But my guess is it was somewhere in, $50,000 or $60,000. It wasn't a ton of money. Immediately when they said, we don't want you to do that anymore, well, the sheriff said, well, I mean, you still have to pay us for the things that we're doing for you anyway. Like, you don't have a dispatch system. You gotta pay for us to dispatch things that happened in North Bonneville. So that ended up being like a $30,000. So of the whatever amount they were paying the sheriff for services, like half of it or more was eaten up by just the cost of the dispatching. And so when they ended up hiring their own chief of police, city chief of police, they ended up paying him, total cost of having him do the work. It was like $100,000 to $150,000 a year. So they weren't saving any money. They actually spent probably 2 or 3 times what they had been spending when they contracted with the county. The city has the same obligations with respect to having a court, right? If they don't, you don't want to have those responsibilities, you don't incorporate as a city, right? I mean,
Okay,
you have to have a court, you have to prosecute the cases. And so, if the city, for example, just unilaterally decided not to do these things, and actually, I feel like I'm giving you legal advice. You can ask Robert about this stuff, but if they unilaterally decided not to do those, then they would actually be forced, I think, to pay some costs associated with those items, instead of doing it voluntarily, like it's.
I think what Councilmember Rice is trying to get at is by statute by RCW, each city is required, I think it's 39.34/180, something like that. They have to prosecute, adjudicate, sentence, and incarcerate for misdemeanors and gross misdemeanors. So what the question be to the prosecutor is what's the highest gross misdemeanor and what would be the sentencing for that? Assault 2, assault 3?
Oh, no.
Those go-
Assault 2 and assault 3 are both felonies. So
Okay,
really, the misdemeanor crimes that end
What do
up
we-
with
assault
long
4?
sentences are things like, third time DUIs have a mandatory minimum of either
Oh,
90 or
okay.
120 days. And frankly, a lot of people get more than that depending upon their history. The driving while suspended in the first degree, you can actually, has the longest mandatory minimum of any crime in Washington. The third time, it's 180 days in jail. So 2 or 3 of those in 1 year. And again, the city has already more than 50% more than their normal sort of average, kind of daily population, which right now is city average is about 1 person per day.
I just got a couple more questions and then I'll be done. Code violations, I know we're gonna talk about those later. Those end up, one of the things I've heard historically here, and I don't know if it's true or not, when the more egregious code violations, I've heard different people, some officials and some just lay people or citizens say, well, the reason the city of Stevenson is lax on code enforcement at times is because the prosecuting attorney's office isn't helpful on enforcing it. And I'm not making a judgment on that. I'm just telling you what I've heard. So like, let's say we have a really egregious code enforcement issue and the city decides, well, we're going to pursue that. Do you have discretion on that, to helping on that, or how does that work with your office, code violations?
We have nothing to do with city code violations. I
Okay,
mean,
so that doesn't go through your system at all.
no, I mean, I think in theory, we could, just like we handle other things, we could handle the city's code violations, but I could also tell you that code violations are an enormous nightmare for everybody.
Okay.
And they are really expensive and difficult to deal with. And they're also sort of, there's a lot of just social difficulty with it. I mean,
Yeah, right.
it's easy to sort of give examples. It's easier to give examples than kind of talk about it in principle. And that is, we've got examples of situations where there's maybe 10 people living on a property in the county, and there's a million code violations going on there, right? The owners of the property don't have any money. We do our best to enforce the code, but the consequence often of enforcing that code is you take these 10 people who are living in a unpermitted structure of some sort and you make them live someplace else. So where do they go? They take their unpermitted RV and they move it into the forest in some places where people can't find them, right? They move it to some place where there's no running water, no electricity. Again, it's a balancing act. And it's, like I said, I think it's really hard because you end up, in some cases by being really aggressive with code enforcement, can increase the number of people that end up being homeless, don't have a place to go, and just shift that problem elsewhere. Again, it doesn't mean you frankly should ignore it. I'm not making a policy argument here. I'm just sort of describing the dilemma that comes with being really aggressive with code enforcement. I mean, the county does its own code enforcement. We often find that the cases take years to resolve. We have multiple code violation cases that we've been dealing with for 4 or 5 years. And part of the reason is, you end up essentially dispossessing people with aggressive use of fines and sort of, forcing people off their property and things like that.
I just have one more question, and that the way I look at it, because it's a fact, the city residents are also county residents. So sometimes I will hear complaints or get information from city residents that deal with the county. For example, the Garvison case. And when you get into cases like that, let's say where somebody's on the lam and doesn't pay, it hurts the city residents the same as it does the county residents. And that, as we talked about today, the budgets are often intertwined. So you don't have to give an answer now, but I wanted to pass this email to you. And at some point, I know there's been a longstanding disagreement on which jurisdiction is responsible for collecting those funds. And there's
not a disagreement, there's a misunderstanding.
Okay, well, I have something from Clark County. And I'm not trying to put you on the spot, but I got documentation from Clark County that it's our responsibility. So you're saying that that's not true?
Yes, it's wrong.
Okay. at some point, could you address that in a memo or something to Clark County? Can we get that resolved? Because I hear a
Well, I
lot.
can tell you that already Richard, Commissioner Mahar has been in contact with Clark County repeatedly. The issue with Clark County is that they no longer enforce fine
Yeah.
and other payments at all. And they don't do it because they don't have the resources. They're,
Okay.
you know, they're in the same position that frankly, Skamania County is. You can't get
Okay.
blood out of a turnip, and
Yeah.
the
Okay.
costs of what I would call the clerk collection program, which is each county clerk used to have sometimes really robust programs where they would, you know, you send people letters and you bring them in and you say, if you're not paying your fines, why aren't you paying your fines? And sometimes they put people in jail for not paying their fines. Almost nobody does that anymore for a number of different reasons. One of which being changes in the law, but the second one being just resources, right?
Okay, yeah, I'm done. One of the things on the Garbison matter, I guess as you probably have heard, he has found employment and it's not that far away. So garnishments still do work. And so it's kind of a sad case where we have jurisdictions, we know where the person is. We have the court judgment, some of it involved felonies and nobody's collecting it. So it seems like a quagmire of bureaucracy. And it'd be nice to get to the bottom of it a little bit because that's frustrating to the taxpayers, as you know.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I'm good. Thank you.
Again. Okay, we are gonna be moving into a public hearing. First one will be commercial wastewater moratorium. I would like to open public hearing at 7:17. We only have findings of fact.
I do. And it adds a year. So the current, project is in process, and it's not gonna be completed until the end of this year. So, the moratorium will need to be extended. One of the benefits of us doing a moratorium over the state is we are able to lift it as soon as the plant is online. Whereas had the state done a moratorium, they would want to wait for 1 year of plant operation before it is lifted. And so again, we'll lift it as soon as the
Hang on.
plant's online.
Hey, guys. Adam, Mary. Helps out. Sorry, it's Leon. Go ahead.
So again, the plant, is expected to, the current contract is ending this year. So as soon as the plant is online, it will be, the moratorium can be lifted. But again, it extended for a year.
So this would just extend what's already going on for a year, and then as soon as the plant opens, we can lift it ourselves.
We can lift it.
Okay.
We can lift it anytime.
Oh, I mean, that's what I mean, but if we lift it, then,
The plant's not ready for it to be
Right.
lifted. Yeah.
right.
Is this the time for questions? I guess.
So that's the staff report. So,
Wait for public comment
Okay.
first, and then we get to
Yeah.
talk about it.
I threw me off.
Oh, sorry.
No
Oh,
questions.
no questions.
all right, are there any comments from the public on this matter?
I don't see any hands.
Any comments on?
All right, to close the public hearing at 7:19, Pat?
Oh, so just educate me on what businesses like would this affect? What size business, what type of business then are,
Another brewery.
okay. And so we haven't lost any, do you know of any business that we've lost because of this moratorium being in place? I mean,
Not
are we-
since it's been changed. Prior to this, the moratorium was anything over residential strength, and there were discussions about a bakery going in, or other expansions.
Okay.
And the feedback that we gave to them was, you can connect as long as you treat your effluent to residential strength. So ultimately, the restriction was if you pre-treat to residential strength, you can put it in. It was a cost decision, for that infrastructure.
And I vote.
Need a motion?
I move to, let me get to it. I need to type, right? No. What do I want? 1209? That's the one that I'm.
7A.
We have to adopt the resolution first and then.
We got two motions, but
You
doing
do the
separate.
first motion, Dave.
I would move to accept resolution 2024-428 wastewater
408.
408. Yeah, that's what I said. That's presented.
Second.
First and second, any further discussion? Favor say aye.
Aye.
Right, who's up?
So now, I'd like to make a motion to approve ordinance 2024-1209, extending the wastewater moratorium on connections with BOD's discharge character above 2,000 milligrams per liter, or loading greater than 5% of the wastewater treatment plant design loading rate that will impact the BOD's or TSS load on the wastewater treatment plant, period.
Second.
First and a second, any discussion? All favor say aye.
Aye. Now, what does that all mean?
It's too late for
Just kidding,
discussion.
just kidding.
All right, so public hearing on utility rates. All right, I'd like to open the public hearing for in the matter of utility rates and system development charges at 7:21. Yeah,
So there was a staff memo, updated in the council packet yesterday afternoon. And it roughly goes over everything that's been discussed over the past few months, with the language that will be put into the, we're gonna be putting it into a fee resolution, that comprises of all city fees into one document. And so this is the language that will be cut and pasted and put into that. And then as well as the ordinances that will have to change to affect other, impact other decisions. And so one of them being the discount, for low income, and as well as removing the ability to have, construction cover. And then also on here is the process and timeline for this that was discussed.
good, all right. Are there any comments from the public in this matter?
So is this, the Mary Rapar, does this all, include, all utilities or just this water and sewer? Or what?
Those are the only two utilities we have.
Electricity, but that's.
We don't, yeah.
Yeah, so, have you included that 400 or 400 cubic feet, whatever the base?
Right, so there is no change to the structure. So it's 400 cubic feet within the base fee that remains.
Okay.
And there's the, and then the percentages is discussed at the last meeting.
So we had 5% in January, or that we had, and then we'll have another 5% coming up here in June or July.
So for sewer, yes, the ultimate rate over 2023 is 10%, and that will be in effect actually this billing, because that was approved at the last meeting for sewer. The water will go up another 0.5%. For the rest of the year, and that will take place as soon as the resolution is adopted. So that will probably take effect June.
Okay, so 2024, for 2024, we'll have 10% for sewer, and how much for water?
So it's 5.5% for water year over year.
Mhm.
And then it is 10% for sewer, this year and next, and then it's, I think 3%, and then it's 3% the remaining years. And that is, assuming that the sales tax is, the street sales tax is adopted.
So is there a procedure for the tiered discount, whatever?
Yes.
For folks, so that we all understand that? And is this going to require financial information being given, or how are you?
It's
going
so
to-
it's currently operated through the senior center. And we'll also then contract through WAGAP, and yes, you will need to provide documentation of your tenant.
Just like the
Just
other
like-
programs, okay?
And the reason why we also use those agencies is because they connect you to other services in addition to discounts that you can get on your water utility. You may also apply for energy assistance or other types of assistance.
Any other public comment?
Well, I just think that once you start closing in on $2,000 a year for water and sewer, it's no matter how much money you have, it's a budget issue. Thank you.
All right, let's close the public hearing at 7:26. Council? So I have a question. Page 58 in the packet that I have, the SDC charges is, so when I'm reading that chart right, that if you're on a 5/8 meter, up to 25 fixtures is gonna be a system development charge of $8,200. So what's the fees after the 25 fixtures?
So then if it's a residential unit, it's a 3/4 meter, and then it'd be the 12,000.
So
It goes to the next.
It goes to the
it
next.
just goes up, so it
meter.
doesn't,
It
it's
just
not,
goes-
doesn't stay with that size meter, it just rolls down.
You need a bigger meter.
You need, yeah, if you have more than
Fair
25,
enough.
you have to have a bigger meter.
I understand the chart now, thank you.
Question for apartments. Usually apartments have their water and sewer included in the rent. Are we, and if you have low income people in those apartments, are they able to request to have the percentage dropped? Who are the people that are able to claim low income? Is it homeowners? Rentals?
So-
What is the status? Because if it's rentals, I mean, you got 40-some%,
They're a direct customer.
pardon?
They're a direct customer.
Yeah, so in my apartments, the landlord pays that, so.
So therefore, they won't get a break on it, correct? Okay, I just want to make sure that we're
Mhm.
talking
Yeah,
about the
it's-
same thing, because
it's
I
coming
mean,
out of my
looking at these
pocket.
percentages of 40-some%
Mhm.
are low income.
Mhm.
And you take those figures for our sewer and water rates, and you take 50% of that out.
Right.
That doesn't sit well with me. So. Okay.
I have a question. A couple of things. Some of the driving forces for these rate increases are the capital improvement projects. It was my understanding that we were gonna take a deep dive into these programs into each project at some point. I know we've taken a bird's eye 30 or 40,000 foot view of that. But have we as a council, and I just missed it, ever taken a deep dive into those capital improvement programs? Because I think, I remember the meeting where Councilmember Cox actually was pretty supportive of doing that. I just don't recall that we've done that.
Since you've been on council?
Yeah.
It's been discussed at council meetings. I was just.
But no, but I'm in a deep dive where we look at each one and ask questions about
We
it.
have not.
Yeah, so, and I think, and I know there was a lot of worry that somehow we were gonna nix some of these programs, but that's that was never suggested. It was, we're gonna take a deep dive into where we would be really educated as council people on that.
We were
So-
talking about doing that at the retreat, if I
Yeah,
remember. the
and
conversation.
that just never
Well,
happened.
and so at this, when we review the CIP, which will start at public hearings May and June, as well as the TIP. And so that's when we do a deep dive, and we do it on an annual basis. And so,
That's kind of
this-
after the fact of the rate increases.
well, and so at the last council meeting, it was discussed if any of the projects or if council wanted to touch on any of those CIP things, and there was no consensus to move forward on any of those adjustments. So again, if that is what you would like ahead of moving forward with any of this, you need to discuss with the rest of your council members with regards to what changes
No,
need to
I'm
be
not
made
sure.
or what needs to be.
I was just asking if I somehow missed something on that.
No,
And-
it was,
and
it's
also-
annually we do go through, because we went through last year,
Yeah.
like each project, and when my first year, I didn't know a lot, and I lived here, but I don't necessarily know all the street names because we just walked around town rather than driving. And so there was locations I didn't know what we were talking about. So there was pictures involved. You did a good job of writing, pictures and on the map, this is where this is, and this is what's gonna change. And so that does happen every year. Whoa, sorry, guys. Time to open close the greenhouse for the day. But anyway, so that will, we will go through the projects and kind of explain what they're for, why we need them when they're coming up, and they're all at different times. I know what you're saying is like but they're on the list to make the change for the adjustments, but
Okay.
if something changes in that, then we can make a change to our percentages if that
We
were
need to.
the case. So
Okay.
from what I understand.
And then the only other thing, and this could be emailed to me, it seems that a lot of the driving force behind a lot of the capital improvement projects was expected growth. So would it be possible, so I don't know what that growth data looks like. Would it be possible to, I didn't see any of it in the information that I've read, would it be possible to get whatever stats you're looking at for that? Just you can email it to me. I don't want to bog the meeting down with it. So I know what does growth mean? When you say the future growth will require this, I don't know what that means, so.
So we don't determine that. That's an engineering firm that puts together the water and sewer plans that determine that. And so when we do another plan, do a plan update, that is when that is looked at again. So that's not information that the staff has like at our fingertips. And to do that level of analysis, we would need to hire a consultant.
Okay, so it just seems like a lot of those projects are justified based on growth, and then the figures, well, we've already gone through the debate of, I guess I'm the only one that wanted specifics on that. So I don't really have much on the figures. And then the other thing that was driving a lot of these costs was what's needed for fire flow and stuff like that, enlarging pipes and stuff.
Yeah, those are gonna be in the water plan. So that's where you're gonna find that information.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, just a lot of unclear
Yeah.
information.
And it's true, they're older plans, and it's a moving target for sure. And so I understand like the challenge with approving a plan that's based on a set of projects that aren't necessarily gonna go through at that timeline. Like that's frustrating to not be able to look into the future and know exactly what something's gonna cost, or know exactly when the project's gonna need, get built. That's why you put together a plan, is you're trying to make an educated guess. And I feel like maybe we've talked about this before, and
Anyway, I don't have any more questions. I'm not trying to stop
Yeah.
you from talking. I'm just saying I didn't want you to know I did.
okay, great.
I'm still concerned about this moderate income tier. And what that means. What kind of an impact that has.
And I can't estimate what that impact.
Yeah, then
Yeah.
I don't like it. We already have the current discount for the low income seniors and the social security disability. I don't think we need to add another tier into that. Especially based upon, hopefully a lot of these folks that are moderate income are rentals and are already being paid for by the landlord. But I mean, you're talking 48% are low to moderate income within the city of Stevenson, according to that survey.
So the federal poverty level for an individual is 15,000. So that moderate income tier would be anybody, individual making below 60,000.
Wouldn't it also be true, though, that just like the capital improvement projects, one of the things is, well, we'll know more later. So wouldn't that also be true with this? We'll know more later and it could be adjusted because you remember that graph that showed what our rates were compared to other municipalities. And I know that the discussion was that those other municipalities, you couldn't really compare, which begged the question, well, that graph was somebody put that in there because it meant something. The fact that our rates were pretty high up there. And so the fact that our rates are high up there, we're impacted. A lot of people that can't afford it are really going to be hurt. So it seems like, why wouldn't you then give them that discount in there? And if you found it was problematic later, that it affected it, when you knew more, just like we know more on capital improvement projects later, then adjust it, then look at it. It seems like we're having our way and saying, hey, we don't have the numbers. But when it comes to helping somebody that maybe not have very many resources, well, we're not giving them the benefit of the doubt. You know what I'm saying? It just seems a little unfair that we be lenient with ourselves on the capital improvement projects when we don't know the numbers, but yet we're going to be pretty strict and not lenient with somebody who may be poverty stricken. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Well, doesn't the apartment complex just split pay?
Yeah, so
Yeah,
if you're
because
in-
this isn't affecting.
If you're in subsidized housing, at least at the place where I live, the landlord pays that and they pay the full rate, as far as I'm aware. So this would only apply to people who pay their own sewer and water bills.
Yeah.
And for the 25% reduction, we're still talking about a monthly bill of $96.
So even if they got that rate, it
With
would
the
still be
25% reduction, would bring it down to 96 from the current rate. I do have a small comment on that section 13.10 by 110 and 120. In the first sentences, it still says senior.
I got the, yeah, I just made that edit, thanks. Yeah.
So comparing what the new rate would be is one way to look at it. Just to like try to keep the conversation going on, helping Dave out. Or proving this point, I'm not sure. If almost half of the ratepayers are paying 25% less. Feels like a substantial hit to
Substantial
our
amount.
to our income. So I'm not sure how to quantify what that would look like.
Right, well, and that's, I don't know, I don't think that to Lucy's point, that people who are in, the subsidized housing for the most part it's the landlord that's paying the utilities at a full rate. And so that won't affect all of those individuals. That won't affect won't affect our bottom line on that.
Right.
And probably wouldn't affect anybody else who rents, whose landlord includes that in the rent.
Right, which is a good amount. It's not everybody. Some places you still have to pay your own, but
Yeah, like a lot of moderate income people rent, so.
yeah. So it won't be 40% of the ratepayers will be paying 25% less. It won't be that.
And they all this bubble up to the
Right.
top. So
Yeah, no, I'm just saying,
So
like, it's
work-
not going
work
to
through.
be, it's not going to be that. It may be 10%, it may be whatever. And it also is people that they have to go through the steps to get that. And a lot of people don't. There's a lot of options that people don't always take advantage of. So I don't think it's gonna be as significant of an amount cut out as it would appear just on paper. But again, we don't know until it actually would go into effect.
yeah, I don't see a motion on here. So this is a public
There
hearing
isn't a
for
motion,
just
there
for the
is,
point
this
of
is just
discussion.
I mean, I guess it would be first reading for the ordinances.
Right.
And
Okay.
there will be, two other ordinances. I didn't prepare them to basically say repealing, or maybe one other ordinance, repealing the ordinance. So right now, the, water rates and sewer rates are adopted by ordinance. There will be another ordinance just stating that those ordinances are repealed and they will be now adopted by resolution. You still have to have public hearings. They're
All the same.
all the
process.
same. You just save some minor costs with codification and publication.
So I guess the question at this point is, does this feel like it's close to what, it felt like we made some
Mhm.
breakthroughs on the three categories, water, sewer, SDC. Does the table feel like this is pretty darn close? Feels like, but that's kind of the sense I'm getting. Except for Dave has a question about the additional tier.
So what do we, or,
And so then at the next meeting, what's gonna happen is, I'll present the ordinances. So if there's no issue with they'll all be separate ordinances, and we can have the discount one be separate from the rest as well, for further discussion, if that's warranted. But there'll be a public hearing for all fees to adopt the fee schedule. As well as an ordinance to repeal the ordinances that are setting the rates to adopt by resolution. And then there'll be these two ordinances up. And so the language that will be in the resolution related to the utility rates that we've had is the language that's currently in this. So that will all be at the next council meeting.
All right. Anything glaring?
Anything.
It feels like the glaring kind of went
It's,
away.
I just wanted to get one last
Sure.
look at it,
Yeah,
and time for review or.
Moving on. All right,
there's getting gray. Mine too.
Okay.
All right. So now we're on to the next
8A.
8A.
Okay.
Oh.
Or is Leona?
So this is the same memo that was presented to you all at the March meeting, where you had the decision to review it at that meeting or push it off until a future meeting.
Mhm.
Just push it off. And now is that future meeting. Ideally, I think what staff would hope here is that you're able to review this draft, refine it to a point where you're ready to push it out to the community for public review, saying, is this something that would work for you? If we were to adopt it, should it be changed before moving forward toward adoption? So want you to get into those decisions about whether it's ready to push out for public release. If it is, then do you have any specific requests for the public engagement strategies that you might use to have that dialogue with the public to see if it's something that works for you?
What's the topic?
The sewer ordinance. The analogy I have here in the staff memo is that with this draft of the ordinance, we're trying to stock a garage full of tools that you can then quickly select or leave in the garage, put in your tool belt, and take it to the task at hand, which in this case is addressing how sewer extensions might occur where septic would be allowed. New septics would be allowed to continue, or replacements might be allowed. I then in the memo address 4 specific topics of discussion that I think you all might want to have, and I think that based on the deep dive that you did with this at the workshop, where there still wasn't quite consensus between what everyone was saying. So in particular, where we talk about appeal, case by case relief on appeal, versus prescriptive standards. Lucy was advocating for, more of an appeal. And so the councils would deal with that, and that wasn't fully vetted. So that's something that I would hope that you would get into a little bit with this. Also dealing with the logical incongruence that's built into this when it comes to the number of residences or number of dwellings where sewer extension would be required versus not required. It's all over the board, going from 3 to an unknown limit that's only capped based on the size of the specific lot. Some might be required to extend a sewer, some might not be. So getting into that discussion is something that I hope that you all will do so that we can present something to the public that either is logically congruent so that they don't poke the holes into it as part of their review, or that we have reasons why it's not, so that we can present those to the public as part of that discussion too. I already mentioned the prescriptive exemptions versus case-by-case relief on appeal. I've included in that some of the decision factors or review factors that a council might consider in granting a relief. That's a great example of where you can just pull some of those right off the table, or leave them on the table, I guess, in the analogy, leave them in the garage and not take them to the public for consideration. That discussion will then lead directly into the next discussion where the city is required to provide an appeal process whereby the city would second guess a decision made by the county health official in requiring somebody to come on septic. And so if you are to establish an appeal framework that the council would review, the idea here would be that that same framing would be used when staff would judge how the county has made their decision. In one case where it would apply to the city council, those would be non-directive. Council might consider this, they might consider how that applies to this, they might just not consider it. When you would turn that decision over to the city staff then to make it to review that appeal, this draft makes that directive. So an appeal needs to satisfy these specific criteria or it won't be granted. Then get into a discussion of policy purposes. This is something that will be useful to go to the public with when they ask, why are you doing this? We'll say that the city council wants to achieve this. We haven't had that with the discussion so far. And so put some things in here to prompt that based on how things have been reading currently and based on the committee's work, how that works out. So that's the preamble. I'll turn it over to you to get into any specifics of the discussion.
So Ben, just because it's come up a couple times, Rick, it sounds like Rick has brought it up a few times. Just if you could take a moment, what I'm looking at is policy purposes. The last sentence, draft language here reflects. Drill down a little bit on it. That it reflects the council's intent for ratepayers to pay for system expansion.
Right. The committee in their review of this as a topic and what those triggers are, spent a lot of time talking about the finances and who should be paying for things. A big portion of that was to put sewer extensions onto the ratepayers, onto the city, onto the ratepayers to make the extension. Pat has talked about this when he says that if a city council wants to achieve a density, then the city should be paying for that. That's the concept that goes into that. And where Rick is right, the committee didn't say all extensions should be on the ratepayers. It did say that extensions should be on the ratepayers, where currently that's not something that we've enshrined as a policy. It will happen once in a while.
So who's advocating that it be enshrined as a policy? That
can-
all extensions should be paid for by the ratepayer.
Once at all.
No one said that. That's the part that I want to try
That's
to
the
get,
part that
to
does, yeah,
refine, that,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
it feels like a blanket statement at the top, right at the top. But we've all, because we went round and round, and we had our kind of workshop, that if we're talking about a measured expansion, so far that has been as the city can make it happen. But if development with a D, capital D, comes through, then that would absolutely fall on
them.
the
Yes.
developer.
Right. I think
with
that was,
Right, and
I think everyone agreed with that.
Again, starting at those policies is the wrong place to start, or it's the exact place to start and we scrub the rest of the red line. And start from what your policies are, what you want to achieve, and then we'll develop red lines to an ordinance that will achieve that. That hasn't been the way things are going. The decisions that have been presented to you at this time are recommendations from that sewer committee.
so right now, the way that the policy stands as written is a developer is someone that does a subdivision, which is 5 lots or more, and they would be required to extend. This is encouraging large lot developments and is not encouraging subdivisions. So people can save money, do 4 lots and have everyone be on septic and not be required to extend sewer. So it does not create the increased density that an expanded sewer system would provide. And it encourages large lot development as it currently stands.
Is this mostly concerning the stuff in table 13.08.070? Which lists the development types.
Can you share it on?
You give
Zoom?
your page,
Yeah, page 70.
okay,
Dot 70.
13.08.070.
okay.
Oh, 130807.
And as I recall, and maybe I'm wrong on that, that's something that we hadn't yet drilled down on. I mean, we hadn't made that decision, right? That was,
Precisely why
that
we
was,
don't start at the policy.
yeah, so maybe that's what we should do is have that discussion, because that was one of the, remember we went through all those points and we made gave a lot of recommendations, and that was left on the table. So, I mean, maybe that's what we need, figure that out. Because, I mean, at what point, whatever you want to call it, short plating or whatever, at what level, if somebody comes in and they're gonna build X number of structures, at what point is it on them?
To bring.
Yeah,
sewer to them.
that's what we gotta, and so we just haven't,
And Ben used the example of, the guy's got 2 places on a lot on a certain size. Or then the guy's got another, 50 feet added onto the
Yeah.
lot. Now it's a different size. So now he has to have 3 on it. So, yeah.
so you're saying that we might be discouraging that, because if we say, hey, if you're gonna do 4, then you gotta bring the sewer line. But if you don't, but if you only do 2 or something, then you don't.
Well, and also in here, so it says, commercial or industrial and multifamily, you have to extend sewer.
Mhm.
That's a moot point. That's 2 lots in town. So unless we do zone changes, that doesn't impact any change.
$78.
Yeah. So just. Because there's 2
If it
different
helps
pages.
you get talking, discuss things more as a group, you had talked about a difference between an owner occupied situation versus a non-owner occupied situation, family compound style of development pattern.
Right.
Those may be ways where you can explain why a 3 is different than an 8 is different than no cap on it.
Right.
Right now, you're not providing the public the rationale to know the difference there.
I think my suggestion was that treat them all, so subdivision, short plat, multifamily, treat them all the same, required to extend and connect with specific exemptions for that situation where, somebody has a family property with multiple units.
So an appeal-based system, it does flatten out the model.
Mhm.
So basically, once you get to what was it, 3? Because what we talked about, there was discussion about like a mother-in-law suite or whatever doesn't make it a multifamily dwelling that by law that, right? Somebody was talking about that last time.
We suggested, yeah.
It was like,
where
once you
the-
break 3,
the
then we go, okay.
committee's recommendation, put the line between single and multifamily as more than one. And so staff had suggested, altering that to be 1 and 2 are treated the same because there's this accessory dwelling unit
Right.
possibility. But then above 3 being that dividing line.
Right, above 3 means, all right, you're gonna have to bring you get to bring the sewer to that area.
Or wait if you're not,
Or
if you
appeal.
don't wanna, yeah.
3 more, and then you make an appeal if
Yeah.
there's a circumstance that would change that idea. That was I remember that was at the end of our night, and we were like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
We've talked about a million things right
Because-
now.
yeah.
But right, I mean, that was kind of, I remember we were all going over that, trying to figure out where the line, what that looks like.
Well, they'd also have the option, they wouldn't have to develop, let's say if the sewer line was a long ways away, you've taken care of the individual and maybe the ADU. And if they don't like the cost of doing a third place on it, then they don't have to do it, you know? So nobody's forcing them to do that third thing, whereas an individual person that owns a home,
Right,
then you
right, we weren't trying to
really, yeah.
basically price them off of being able to build one
On
house
their property,
on
yeah.
their property. Right,
Yeah.
that was the rationale.
So,
I guess my challenge is, and here I go kicking the dog again, but telling a person that he can't build just one residence on the property.
What do you mean?
I'm confused.
Well, you just made the comment.
No, I said making them extend the sewer to just one.
Right.
We're not telling them they can't build. We're not even telling them they could do septic. I'm saying they wouldn't,
Yeah.
they're not required to bring sewer to themselves if they want to put a house on it.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm saying the opposite of what you thought I
Yeah,
said.
he's,
Sorry,
I
I wasn't,
think you guys.
maybe I
are
wasn't
agreeing.
clear
All
enough.
right.
But yeah, no, I'm absolutely not suggesting that, because that was
Okay.
Yeah.
the fear
Because you and I
that was,
have-
that was
you
the.
go
no,
around and around.
No, that
about
was the
one.
fear that brought a lot of people to the initial
That's right.
discussion was, oh my gosh, if I want to put a house on my land and I'm far enough away, I can't build anymore.
Yeah.
But that was
Mhm.
after the committee, that basically was not,
Mhm.
And I get the whole thought process, you know, especially where Ben's coming from as far as density and all those things. I get that. And we talk about, you know, available lots that are available for increasing density. And I understand that process, but I also look at Washougal. I look at Fern Prairie. I look out around Lacamas Lake and all the stuff that's going on out there. And I am not convinced that density is the answer. Just
well, the way
just
that
from
we're-
watching that.
right, but the way that we're writing, the way that the group went when they were making these suggestions was essentially like not like that. It was just like, okay, well, I mean, there will be some density, people are going to develop, but at the same time, by not requiring a single home person to run the sewer to themselves, we're making it so they can build and stay on there. Like we're
Yeah, the
going
opposite. would-
against the idea of
Yeah.
maximizing density. We're opening it up to any kind of development rather than just high density. Essentially more making it easier.
You're allowing them to keep their
After
big
them.
lot and put a house on it. Whereas, and I think that's one of the things that got confusing, and I hope it doesn't
No,
I hope it doesn't end up in the final language, but you could, I think, I do agree with, what Mr. Jessel sent in his email where, you know, he talks about subsection F. And it relates to what you said, Dave. You could, using the term like manipulation occurs by making commercial blah, 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 blah. You know, as you go on there, that word manipulation could be put in any ordinance, I think, because whatever you do, someone could say you're manipulating it because there's going to be a cause and effect. And manipulation is kind of has a negative connotation on it. So I think I would recommend that we take out verbiage like that over any ordinance, because no matter what that ordinance said, you could say, well, somebody's manipulating it, or they would have done it this other way. It's unnecessary loaded language, I think, that just clouds the issue. But I think, I think we're preserving large lots by the way this is going. And then people, and the way I heard one resident say, and I think it's true, that you're allowing density to be permissive versus make it mandatory, because you're setting up a scenario where if somebody has a large lot, they can put a house there, as opposed to where if you have the economics such that the only thing that was profitable was to cram as many houses in as possible to get the sewer there. So I think that the way we're going and the way the sewer committee recommended this, if we follow the way this is going anyway, it's more apt to keep Stevenson, as opposed to Washougal and what you're talking about, Dave.
Mm-hmm.
so,
Yeah, so back on the 3 houses,
Mhm.
I'm fine with.
well, I think 3 and more, and then making it opening it
Appellate
up to appeal.
process. Yeah.
I think that for me makes more sense, right? It kind of makes it more, like if they put in an appeal and the appeal fits the criteria, there has to be criteria for what would be a reason to have an appeal. But if it fits the criteria, then they can appeal, and then it'll be up to.
Well, I can't imagine somebody trying to put in more than 3 places on a lot and being able to secure a septic system for each one of those places. Health department buying off on that.
Well,
Right.
so, look at the zoning that we currently have. That's the zoning that we have for multifamily.
Mhm.
Is all sewer.
Right.
Yeah, so.
Right. Yeah, so that's
we
what I'm
don't
saying.
have
It's not gonna, I don't think this is, so are you
So it's like
not?
focusing on putting 3 lots, 3 homes on 1 lot for septic, it's a moot point.
Yeah.
Unless we change the zoning.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah,
unless
yeah.
they
so-
put in
So,
for
so,
changes.
so
So
right
that-
now,
yeah,
so that's a moot point, because
so, yeah.
every place with zoned for multifamily is sewer.
Okay, so we don't have, so we're on the
So
same
that's
page.
not an
Yeah,
issue.
so it's not even.
So again, though, what this code does is it encourages large lot development throughout town. It does not encourage increasing or decreasing the lot size.
But but that issue has probably already been debated and discussed with the sewer committee at length. Is that what you
No.
want?
Yeah, I guess that's the question. Yeah, is that what you want?
Well, how about this, from what I heard, and from again, Dave and I, we weren't at the last couple of meetings.
No.
We were at the first few, and from what I heard, the way this is written, it will encourage larger lot sizes especially in the outer areas in Stevenson. But that's what the cut of the community that we got in there.
And I want, the reason why we, are concerned about this is we want to talk about affordable housing.
Oh,
So so again, it's going against what you all, other things that you want to make movement on and change on. And so that's why we just want to make sure that you understand the outcomes of decisions that are made.
I do, and I know that recently, I'm not the one who is the most outspoken about affordable housing, but if you remember that, the whole first year that that's a big deal for me. It's a huge concern. But I also know that we represent the people that live here. And we, as a council, and we tried to get a pretty wide range of, homeowners, sewer, septic, business owners, contractors, like it was kind of everybody who lives in Stevenson, a piece of that meeting, of that group. And this is what came out of that. And so for me to be like, no, I know for me, I want to make it different, that it doesn't feel true to what we were trying to do in the first place, which is to find out what the community actually wants and what we can do, what levers we have as a city. Absolutely, we all want affordable housing, but what can we do? And if the changes that we would make to this to push for smaller, more dense, smaller lot sizes, is basically, from the discussions, would make it so some people just can't do anything on their land because of various reasons, then there was a resounding no on that idea. So for me although in my mind, I would absolutely love smaller lot sizes and more density and on all of that, because I want more affordable housing for everyone here. This is what came out of the public. This is what came out of us talking to people who live here that aren't on council, but absolutely have a stake in this. And so I'm going to, from my one vote, not the council, I'm not speaking for the council, for my one vote, I'm going to go with this, even though I know it doesn't prohibit more dense, but it encourages or gives opportunity for larger lot sizes and less density. It's what came out of it. It's where we went. And I was at anecdotally, we had tables set up and they were like, okay, do you agree 1 through 5? 1, 5, you 100% agree. 4, you mostly agree, all the way down to 1. And I was at the 1 and 4 table, and I was the only 4. Everybody else there was a 1. And that's what I felt is the shift in the way this went as we went through the process. So for my vote, I'm gonna go with what came out of that. Even though I do know where it's going, I do understand the long-term repercussions, but.
Regarding the density, can that be addressed with zoning? For example, new developments within certain areas has to be multifamily?
If the people in that area want to make
Is there political will?
Right.
Can it be? Yes.
Can it be? Yes. It
Short
really
answer,
does.
yes.
Yeah, there is a process for that, yes.
Correct.
And I get the affordable housing thing, but we are not guaranteed affordable housing when a person puts 3 places on a lot.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
you look right down at the end of Vancouver Avenue, I guarantee you that those 3 places on the right that
Brian.
Right.
Mackenzie
Yeah.
put in
Yeah. they're
are not low-income houses.
Yeah.
So, so
Density
You
of
know,
houses. just
I
long-term.
think this is the way to go. But I think affordable housing. I watch Portland City Council or somebody else talking about, putting in their housing developments for low income, the little houses. And I think that's awesome. But where are they getting, number one, where are they getting the money? Cause show me the money. And because you're not seeing a landowner saying, I want to put, 5 little tiny homes on here and only get out of my investment, only get a portion of what I could normally get. And so that is a real concern that I have about the message that we send to people that are landowners saying, even though you invested in this property, we don't think you should do this, and we think
They're going to try to maximize their.
yeah, absolutely, the return,
That's the
absolutely.
issue.
And that's the capitalistic, if you will, approach. And I don't want to get into the politics of all of it, but
That's like,
yeah.
we were talking about what levers the city has to help with affordable housing, and there are some things, but again, like I said, in my opinion, and maybe, It's just, we went around and around, especially the first couple of meetings about this, and this is what we,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? It was like, all right, well, we're not gonna make somebody, because I know people who have land that if they had to run the sewer to their thing, they're just not gonna put anything there. They're just, and they won't be able to sell it if it was required, which we are not saying do, we're not suggesting that. I'm just saying that it was the shift. The direction that this is basically where we landed with all of those people in the room.
Yeah, and the thing is if I have to have a piece of property that I have to bring the sewer to before I can build on it, I'm not gonna be able to sell that piece of property.
Right.
Lucy has a thought.
Yeah, what they
Sorry.
said is kind of the issue with relying on developers for affordable housing.
Right.
It's not profitable,
Absolutely.
or not as profitable as vacation homes
Sure.
or whatever else. So I feel like that's a bit of a separate issue.
Yeah, that's its
Yes,
own
I-
thing.
I
I
would-
feel like it's different.
That's,
It's a bigger issue. It's a
That's
big
a-
issue, but it's not this ordinance. And I mean, it is, but it's not at the same time.
Well,
Did you have something else? I didn't mean to cut you off.
I was just
Maybe
gonna
like-
say that while the houses that are being built now may not be affordable, it allows people mobility to move into those and to let go of homes that are maybe more affordable. And so same with, like, you can't buy a used car without someone buying another car and
Right.
without new cars being made. So without that inventory being in there, it's never gonna show
Sure,
up.
without any,
So-
yeah,
Yeah, so right
Yeah.
now, those homes that are being built may not be affordable, but it allows that
Somebody else
rotation
to
of
go.
Right, yeah,
inventory
sure, absolutely.
ultimately.
Yeah.
But we don't even have.
Right.
Minimum level.
Well, I'm with Michael and Dave on this, so I don't need to say.
I think that,
So-
you know, I
And I
What are
don't
you
know
looking
what
for?
it is.
I look at, for example, my neighbor that just sold her house to a couple that lives down in California. And it is sitting there and it is empty. And it will be empty up until the time they decide to move up here for the spring, and they'll be up here and then they will turn around and leave and it'll be empty again. And that frustrates me. But anyway, I don't want to go.
That is
down
a different, that's a different
Yeah.
meeting.
Right, that's a
And
different-
Bruce has
yeah,
already
different
been kind of
discussion.
chiming in on that. too,
Okay, so
this
yeah,
What I'm
Vacation
hearing from
homes.
you all is that you're okay with the affordability, issues, related to, being more facilitated for, large lots, single family development. I didn't hear anything specific on, what isn't large lot. What are you all considering not large lots
well,
development? So you,
I
you
think with
want
the-
to keep it Stevenson, but we need specifics in order to present to the public, and that's where I want you to tell us multifamily, short plat, where those triggers are, so we can push it to the public for.
Over-
So well,
three,
I
right?
think three
Three.
and up is
Okay.
the
Three and
trigger,
up.
and then
Is
you can
that-
appeal.
Okay.
I mean, and that's what.
So that gives you the opportunity to have a house
Yeah.
and put an ADU on it if you want.
And if now you've given me three, I like that, I can help, with the next step, so. Where we get, tied up in the subdivision, short plats, discussion. We have never landed on anything, if we use three as the principle,
Mhm.
then we can say a 2 lots. Short plat,
Mhm.
anything above that is the trigger, and the reason why I say a 2 lot short plat is because on. Both of those resulting lots, you could do, ADUs
Mhm.
for a total of.
Could be
4,
up to 4, right?
and that's very close to the 3, so you've got some logical congruence with that.
Right.
Is that something that works better than, you've got 4 1-acre lots versus this guy had 5 1-acre lots?
I think just making them just the 3 is, well, like you showed the map, like, but this guy has 4 over here, this guy has 5 1-acre lots. Sorry, you have to bring sewer, this guy doesn't have to bring sewer. I think 3 is what we're like, okay, that's what's gonna be, if it's 3 or more, then you have to appeal if you're going to be.
Do you see the wrinkle that I'm trying to
You're trying to,
address?
you're trying to address.
With the ability to do an ADU
Mhm.
on now multiple lots, where 1 lot.
Well, but that's the law. You can do
That's
ADUs,
fine.
right?
Okay,
Yeah,
but-
absolutely.
Okay.
When you have 1 lot currently now,
Mhm.
and you have a home on that, you can add an ADU.
Mhm.
To that. So there's 2, and then you divide your lot in half, and the neighbor does the same thing, now that's 4 as a total. But if we go to,
But it's
every
2 and
one of
2,
those,
not 4.
every one of those that you add is the potential for 2 more. And that begins to stray from what you very clearly said with the 3. And
But-
so how do we explain that? Because the
But that
public
gives you
is
the
smart.
density you want. You're saying that they'll game the system.
The public is smart enough to know that this doesn't work with this. Why are they doing this? And be frustrated with it.
Okay, what, are you saying that they'll game the system to get more? Okay, so I'm confused.
So
I guess I'm not following you, Ben, in regards to the 2 and then the 4 and splitting
Well,
the
okay,
lot.
so what,
Yeah, let's.
hold on, just, this is totally just me. And I'm
So
I'm
it
a visual,
helped
I'm a
me too
visual,
to
okay,
see
so
it.
this is the lot, right? And right now they can go 2, just for fun, we'll put 2 up here.
Mhm.
And then we go, okay, well, they subdivided that, right?
Mhm,
Well, then now we can get 2 over here too. Well,
mhm.
they cut it again, and then we get 2, like they can, but you can't, because you still have to have, if you're trying to do septic,
Yeah,
you have to have. Is there no minimum?
The difference that I want here is.
Okay, what do you,
with,
that you show me, I'm
yeah.
not trying, I'm just
So,
trying to understand what we're looking for.
Lot A,
Yeah,
if they go to put 3, you tell them sewer.
correct.
Lot B. If they go and they divide that into 4,
But divided into 4 lots,
divided into 4 lot as a
Short
short
plat.
plat.
okay,
Right.
Now they can do 2, 4, 6,
8.
8,
Right.
and that's very different than the
But-
3.
but
that you
A-
said was an
Correct.
But
investment
no,
to justify
but A
extension.
can short plat and do the same thing. If they want 3, if they have enough land and they have the ability,
You told this one that they needed to do sewer.
not
Yeah.
if.
but
not-
they have the
not if
option
they have the
to
option
do
to
what they
short
wanted.
plat.
They could short plat it too. Then you'd have density,
I'm not-
wouldn't you?
I,
Oh, we're not
hold on,
arguing
hold on.
with you, so
Trying to
don't.
figure out
Yeah.
what you mean.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to
So
understand what
in
you're.
one case, somebody wanted to do 3 new houses.
They'd have to short plat first. wouldn't they?
I get exactly what you're saying.
Okay,
I
Tell
understand.
us.
yeah.
Yeah,
so-
Basically what you're saying is if I've got a lot here, I can subdivide that
Mhm.
and then subdivide it again. Now I've got 4 lots that I can put a house to and an ADU, and a house and an ADU, and a house and ADU, and a house and ADU. Over here, you're telling
Without
this
having to
guy,
run sewer.
you're telling this guy over here,
You just wanted to do 3.
he just wants to do 3. Okay, and he wants to separate it out. He wants to divide it into thirds and put a house on each one. And we're telling him, no, you can't do that because that is too.
Well, but we're saying 3 on 1 lot,
Yeah,
are we not? I
But,
don't
but
understand.
it's, so if you have 1 acre
I
lot,
get it.
you have 3 on 1 lot, or you have 8 on 1 lot, one would require sewer, one would not.
Yeah.
I understand,
With-
but,
within
but
an
I,
acre.
You
I
understand what I'm
understand,
saying,
but what I'm
Pat?
saying.
Yeah, I do,
Yeah.
but there's a difference.
You're
You're not.
you're not.
Well,
understanding what- I understand what you're saying. Yes, you could, if they divided up that 1 acre lot into 4 pieces.
But we're just, what's the policy decision
It's,
for that?
Why is
Are
it
they different?
okay for them
Yeah.
to be different? Why could that guy
Right.
do 8?
Well, the other guy could
Because
have too, if he wanted to jump through the hoops and be an entrepreneur and subdivide in advance. They both have the ability to do that. Some are gonna be more aggressive with their property than others. But I would think it gives you exactly what you want, which is more density.
wouldn't we just,
You
we
could
could.
make many
hold on,
assumptions
could-
about what I want.
couldn't-
No, I'm just telling you what I
couldn't
want.
we
the
advise
council.
this? If this comes up and this person's like, I wanna put 3 houses on my 1 acre. This has already happened across the street. This guy comes and says, I wanna put 3 houses on my 1 acre lot, and you go, okay,
Sewer.
that can't happen unless you run sewer. Unless you
So the
split
question,
this, right?
the
Does that
question
not
I
make,
have, in order to be logically congruent, why isn't a number 8? Why is it 3 and 8?
because 8 is, because these are separate, this would be this would be 4 separate lots, would it not be 4 separate
It
lots?
would be, but in that scenario where, we've got 1 acre, that 1 acre now becomes 8 homes.
But that 1 acre becomes 4 lots, any 4 lots. It's
Yeah.
different when you have, it's the number of lots, it's not the size
How do
of
we
your lot.
explain the difference? How do we explain the difference?
We don't, we just say what the rules are.
No, I understand what, I get what you're saying, how do you explain why a 1 acre lot couldn't have 3 houses and a 1 acre lot subdivided twice could have 8?
No, why would one require sewer that's less houses than the other?
Right.
That's the question.
But it's not one lot. It's
Why are you
one-
Yeah,
it's
requiring?
not
when
one lot
short
anymore,
platted
is what
it
I'm
or
saying. If you
subdivided,
split
so
it,
when
it's
went
not
did
one
the
lot
next,
anymore. If it stays one lot, then it does require, well, I guess you wouldn't do 3 houses in one lot, would you?
Can't,
Yeah,
have
you
separate
can't.
tax parcels.
Yeah.
You'd have to,
I'm just trying to say, you could run these scenarios anyway, whatever you do, and I'm just trying to say
So
that
what-
both have the option to do that. You
so if
know,
I own. Trying to
Why
figure
make
this
it
out.
that difficult?
So what's a better answer? Is what I'm asking.
That's what we're asking.
No, so Ben was asking, so right now the threshold is subdivision, which is 5 lots or more.
Okay,
So the Ben is asking the question, if it should just be 3 lots or more requires, so if you wanted short plat, you can 2 lots, doesn't require sewer. Anything more than 2 lots for a short plat requires sewer.
I believe that hits, the sentiment of the community too. I just want to divide my lot in half. Why has this become something?
But then if you just divide your property in half, if I'm tracking, divide your property in half. This is not a trigger. But as soon as you divide it into 3, from 1 lot down to 3, still, yes, it started out the same size, but now 3 is your trigger. So, yeah, 6 houses, but they all need sewer.
So just to clarify, the single family that's not required to extend and connect to public sewer. We're just talking about someone developing a single lot, not a developer developing a bunch of single family homes, right?
Well,
Well,
Because if,
Not necessarily.
It could be a developer doing a 4 lot short plat.
or even a 3 lot short
Or even
plat.
a
If
3
you
lot
divide an
short
acre into
But I-
3 separate lots with 1 house each, that's still 3.
but I'm saying, so the developer wouldn't be able to say, develop 4 separate single family homes.
Unless they put in sewer.
So as it's currently written, they would be able to take and divide 4 separate lots and put a home and an ADU on each lot and not have to extend sewer.
Or as soon as that subplat is, it starts with 1 lot, you divide it 3 or more lots. That's the number, that's the 3.
I could see a threshold like that, and I understand your point. I mean, it's a good point. I'm just trying to say that both lot owners, I could see a threshold for what the mayor's saying, you know. I think the main impetus of this is we made people's property worthless, but and when we're fixing that, and we have fixed that by lifting the moratorium, but then we're figuring out the rest of this. The question I have is, does it get down to a minimum lot size? I mean, how much space is needed for a septic system? And also, it could get, so right now we have a hybrid system. At some point, there can be an incentive on the city, if we're worried about this happening, is to, I mean, by pushing grants and focusing on that stuff. The city always, we have the option as a city to get these lines extended on our own, by hook or crook. But I mean, I wouldn't be against a threshold at some point. If somebody's coming in and gaming the system and taking a large lot and they're just gaming the system, like you say, at some point.
I never said gaming system.
I did, that's my term, and that's what, I mean, I'm just trying to say is,
Just a question.
yeah, on gaming, I'm not using it as a negative term any more than the person uses manipulation as a negative term. I call it being smart sometimes. I mean, I know.
What minimum lot size? What about if we addressed it by minimum lot size? As opposed to subdivision or short plat?
I would think that in any situation where a developer is developing 3 or more single family homes, they would be required to extend the sewer as well.
I would say, and I would, but off of that, I would say any developer that is going to develop property, 1 acre or 50, that is going to have 3 or more units or 3 or more parcels that have a minimum lot size of. That way you're not locked into the 1 acre parcel being split in half and then they're splitting it again. You have a minimum lot size that you can operate off of.
Let me ask you
And
this,
then if
Ben.
you've got 3 of those, then you extend the sewer.
Let
If
me
you have
ask you
2 of
this.
them,
3 structures or 3 short plat. A short plat that has divides into 3. So it's either 3 structures or
a short plan.
3 lots as part of a short plat.
If that's what you all are
I'm
comfortable
just
with.
trying, it's like, I'm trying to figure,
I think that
you're trying to
makes
tease
sense.
something out of his, out of the
So
table,
you
so
can-
I'm-
you can present about the choice.
Yeah.
If those are-
because long-term, we gotta figure this out.
No, I mean, that makes, yeah, that makes sense. If it's 3 structures on one piece, or it's a. This is my
Short
short,
plat that
we cut
creates
it into
3.
3 or more pieces,
Mhm.
then we gotta run sewer to it.
So does the 3 include the ADUs?
doesn't matter. 3 on 1 lot. In this
Well,
scenario that we're still throwing around,
okay,
3 structures on 1 property triggers
whether the property's
3
been
homes,
short platted
3
or not.
3 homes. Yeah, okay. Where people live as opposed to an outbuilding.
Right.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Shed, it's different.
Or a short plat of, well, more than 2.
Yeah.
Is
So
that
basically, you're
something-
telling people, if you've got 2, you can have septic. If you have 3, you have to have sewer. And then the other option for that is what if the sewer is 3,000 feet away?
Then they have the appeal for
Yeah.
excessive cost grounds.
So then we go, so then
Go
we
to the
go
appeal.
Yeah, and
to appeal and they say, we want to put in our septic system. We've got it engineered for these 3 homes. We're gonna put this in up till the time when you get the sewer extended. And then at that time, we have the
Our
opportunity.
lots are
to-
big enough, we have the
with
space, we've already
opportunity
done the
to-
thing.
Hold
Yeah.
on.
yeah, and
I think that's where the appeal process has to come in.
as long as you're bringing up the appeal process, at this point, anyway, I would agree with Lucy that goes before the council. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
because you would ask that question, who does it go before? Does it go before?
Mhm.
That came up before. Maybe I misunderstood.
Are we settled on those triggers though? Can we celebrate success on
Yeah,
that?
I
before
think
we
that's
move
the
to
trigger.
next
I think-
step?
Okay, so this is where I see this discussion right now. So far, we have kind of narrowed down on to what triggers mandatory sewer extension. Next step is if there's going to be an appeal component, that needs to be dealt with, as you've already detailed in your memo here. The third component that we haven't even talked about is this notion that sewer has been extended and it goes past your septic property. What do you pay and when? And when do you connect? What do you? That's hasn't even been touched on and it's 8:30.
For existing or?
Yeah, so what do you suggest? I mean, did we touch on it now? I mean, I'm not,
I didn't
I'm
touch
just
on
saying
that in any detail in the memo because at the deep dive that you all had, there was generally consensus to say that's a good idea from the committee. I want to open it up if there's not, that consensus doesn't remain now that you see it on paper and how that might look.
And I had understood that when the sewer line goes by your property, you have the opportunity at that time to hook on. If you have septic,
3 years.
Within a window,
Yeah,
what's that?
SDC forgiveness, right? It was a.
but yeah, it was a 3-year window.
To get the price break,
Yeah,
Yeah,
right? But if you go beyond that 3-year window, say your septic's still working, you can keep working on it. You're not required to hook into the sewer at that point, but when your septic does fail, then you're paying the full Monty
right.
to hook in.
But there was also a component of if it's within a certain distance, there was some verbiage
100.
about,
100 feet of the property.
then you
No.
start paying a monthly fee.
no, it was not 100, it was at the property
At
line,
property line,
right at the
excuse me.
property line. But, and also the good news is, if we leave it at that, what you're suggesting, well, this is gonna go through I mean, I'm not saying you're suggesting, you're saying we haven't discussed that yet. Or we
If that's
did
because
touch
we've
on it.
already decided that that's good the way it is,
That's-
that's
I
fine.
think-
We want to leave it alone,
What
yeah.
I'm also saying is,
we're gonna have a public involvement period on this, and we have the right to, I mean, if we get more information and the public, there's outcry, and this is gonna hurt a lot of people, we can reconsider that as well. So there's this other component where we're gonna get input.
But yeah,
Yeah.
I think what was presented on that part,
Yeah,
that's why you did go into detail. I think we all kind of agreed that,
yeah,
yeah, at this
okay.
point,
All right,
we'll leave that
fair.
alone.
okay.
So then the appeal framework is still a nebulous topic.
Appeal framework, that section is on page 80 and 81 of the documents, 11 and 12 of 47 for the code specifically. So, the appeal review criteria that are drafted are 7 deep. So the city council may, at its sole discretion, grant or deny relief upon appeal. Factors for consideration may include, but and are not limited to. So again, this is, you guys think about what you want to think about, apply this concept or not when you receive any appeal.
Right.
First one is related to the cost.
Mhm.
That language was not something that I wrote. That's something that
Right.
we borrowed from somewhere else.
But that was the financial hardship was something that absolutely came up about having an appeal, and that's even come up in our discussion tonight.
Well,
Like,
that's even
we're so
comes up
far
in-
away,
Yeah, that's,
what are we gonna do?
well, financial hardship is also state law. There's also
Right.
state RCW.
So, yeah,
They
anyway,
govern
yes,
about that.
that's absolutely something we all, I think that's, that's absolutely a factor.
The other part of financial hardship is that, okay, sure, this whole line could cost me this. However, there's an opportunity for me to recoup that from the others adjacent to it through latecomer fees. In this case, you would say, you've attempted to engage in a latecomer agreement and we've denied that.
Gotcha.
So that's why the hardship remains. Entering into an agreement to pay for that at some point in the future. You can consider that or not consider that. Whether or not development of the lot is owner occupied or for not-for-profit purposes, that's something that was discussed at the last meeting.
Yeah.
Both of those. Whether or not the use or density of development of the lot is consistent with adopted city plans. Whether or not the on-site septic has been inspected and found to be of suitable size and condition. And then the last one is whether or not there's evidence of water quality degradation in nearby potable water well or water course. Now, that last one is one that you were very clear that don't include that. This is in the garage. You can leave it in the garage and not take it to the
It doesn't
public.
have to be something that we,
Yeah. And when I was reading that, studying that, it's a direct, I mean, those were on, the Department of Health would be making those decisions. This isn't something, right? There's no way, we didn't deviate from what we talked about in the workshop.
It is. And-
Okay, well, that's the part is I don't
Let me
want the
explain
city in.
difference- Let me explain the difference in the approach here. It
Right.
is where if somebody has a potable water well and they can no longer drink from that, then the burden of proof for them to have somebody else's septic decommissioned is to prove that pollution is coming from that person's septic. That's the standards that the Department of Health has. In this case, the city council would be able to shift that burden of proof somewhat to say, look, if you have the opportunity to connect to sewer and it might help that person's water well, we're gonna make this decision to require that connection or to not grant the appeal. You would maintain that different authority. You can remove this from that, and the
Okay.
future city council still can. It's just a different framework. that we have.
it's not a requirement, it's a,
Yeah, and that comes before the council. Yeah, okay.
yeah, which that makes.
Okay.
Yeah. And those, I think that for me, those seven, again, we would look at it case by case based on does it
Right.
meet these
So the staff
criteria?
report that you would have would
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 show, it
provide
does
some
this,
indication
1,
of-
2, and 5, or whatever that is.
Connect those dots as it's starting off.
Right, yeah,
There was one other thing I was thinking, regarding the financial hardship part. So there was also, say it's not exceeding that 20%, but it's still much more expensive than sewer. And it's maybe too much for them to pay. Perhaps there could be another type of economic feasibility is what I called it. This is what I was calling economic feasibility, and then the financial hardship is like, it is below that amount, but still much more expensive and maybe they're not able to do it.
So
That we
maybe
would
one
consider.
example would be a crazy grade in the street or something that had to be overcome. It's not just I'm just trying to figure out a way, wrap my head around what you're talking about with the feasibility.
Well,
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Lucy.
So this cost equal to or exceeding 20% of the fair market value. So maybe it's 18%, and that's still way more than a septic would cost. And so that could still be a consideration.
Yeah, the question I have is this formula, what you're talking about here, the 20%, is this permissive on the council, or is this mandatory on the council? I guess, and maybe it's obvious, it's just getting late.
That's discussed, all of these are non-directed.
Yeah, they're permissive, because I mean, I agree, I highlighted that because I had the same concern there.
Right,
that,
so if it's
And
18%,
then we're getting into 20% of the fair market value, and then figuring that out, what is that?
Maybe comparing to the cost of septic is more.
well, but we can also look at, I mean, let's say that it doesn't reach the number one, but it absolutely is not this is a nonprofit purpose. This is it meets other criteria that we're looking at. It doesn't have to, the case to be brought for an appeal doesn't have to meet all 7 things. These are the 7 things we're looking at. Correct? So it's not like it doesn't have to, if it's 18%, but it's definitely for a family, they're definitely going to be living there. They're and if that would be a problem, then that would be something we could look at because it meets the other reasons why people can
So
appeal.
any one of these,
Correct.
the council can rest its
Correct.
case any way it wants.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, so these are
The
just-
20% isn't a problem.
These
if
are
it's
just
under that.
suggestions.
So, yeah.
Tools in the garage.
Tools. These are tools to say, all right, it meets this criteria, let's look at it.
Yeah.
Is that fair?
So Ben, you're gonna take all this information and create something with not so many red lines. And then we decide,
I kind of like the
It
red and
sounds
green
like
lines.
that's what you all want, be able to move on from this, not push this out for public review quite yet. Have it tightened up as a document. We still need to address the other issue where there's an administrative appeal that's required by the state, where the city reviews the county's decision to require a connection to public sewer.
Is that mandated by the state, you're saying? So,
And mandated as an administrative appeal, so.
in the interest of time, it
Yeah.
feels like we have made quite a bit of
Yeah,
progress
I
tonight,
agree.
enough to move on.
Yeah, and what I'll do with that one, because that one is mandatory, or it's drafted as mandatory, that you're handing this over to a staffer to make decisions on these things. And don't stray from those things, so that
It
you
has
can
to
always
be
have
this,
that,
right.
you can hold them accountable,
Okay.
in that delegation of authority. What I'll do there, with Lucy is try to tease out how it might be a difference between feasibility versus hardship, and build that in as an option for you for that specific type of decision. In cases where the Department of Health would require connection, those are usually very limited, and that's when there's a 200-foot, there's sewer within 200 feet. That's something that's within all the state, I don't remember if it's laws or
It's in our
regulations. So the concept of it could be 3,000 feet away
Right.
can kind of just be put
It's just
aside
gone,
for that
right.
one. But I'll have some other options for you.
I think we've got quite a bit.
yeah,
All right.
and just one thing, and this can be dealt with later because it maybe it's been teased out and I'm just missing it because it is getting late. We got other things to talk about. But on Rick Jessel's email, where he says, he talks about the footnote 3 installation or expansion. Anyway, that language there, I'll have some questions. I mean, I want to make sure that I have concerns about that.
Do you want to call between meetings so we don't take meeting time for all that?
Yeah, I just want you to know that I have concerns about that. I want to make sure that on the face of it, what it looks like could be happening isn't. Okay.
Perfect. Okay, we do have some things that we would like to get taken care of in the next few minutes. Carolyn, thank you all very much. Well done.
The agreement that's in here is one that's drafted using the Washtenaw Local Programs template agreement form. Included in that is also the scope of work as well as some different rate justification information. Dow Construction. Dow is our selected consultants for the First Street Overlook project, construction management and inspection. So, you don't have any questions about that agreement?
The $159,105, is that coming from grant money or is that city funds? And maybe it's in the packet, not just.
At this point, the engineer's estimate had that number at 105, and we don't have all of the funding secured for this project. That being said, the bid hasn't come in yet, and we do have an opportunity to go request more money. So I'm in the process of doing.
So this could be city money or grant. We don't know.
Not all of it.
Majority is-
The vast majority is grant.
I'd move to approve the contract with Dowell for First Street Overlook Project Construction Engineering Services in the amount not to exceed $159,105.
Second.
First and second, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Very well. Thank you. Let's see, is this, who's running this?
Yeah, so this is a water adjustment. When we had the last cold snap, they had a pipe burst. It's a commercial business that had a coffee shop in it at one point in time, and so they're charged a surcharge as well as for sewer flow usage, and so they're requesting waiver of that that sewer amount, which would be that $1,800 figure. If we calculated it as we would a normal forgiveness, which would include the water usage, that rate would be $2,600, but there's a policy limit of $1,000 that we have. And in the past, recent past, there was a leak discovered at Skamania Lodge that was going into their stormwater system, and so we waived their sewer fees related to that calculated.
For how much?
I think it was
The
over
one that
10
we waived?
I think it was over 10,000.
It was big. I
It was
remember that
10 or
happening.
15.
So that's why this isn't on the consent agenda, right?
That,
Because
yeah,
it's over.
exactly. That's like the policy. It's not,
Thank you.
so.
Well, because this came up when we were like incredulous that the sewer rate was for a small coffee shop was that the kicker for the BOD rating. So if sewer rates are based on the amount of water coming in, then the sewer rate is the issue here, that it did not create the load on the system
Correct.
that
Right,
water
exactly.
usage
Right.
would normally
Yes.
indicate.
Correct.
Which was the same issue with the lodge.
Which is the same thing that happened in the lodge. Yeah, it went down there, so go to the sewer. So
I can make a motion to approve the wastewater flow and surcharge adjustment of that 1874.68 for Moon River.
Second.
Michael got that one. So first and a second, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Carolyn.
So this one is a supplement to a previous local agency agreement, again, for the First Street project. So this is taking it from the design to construction as well. So that's the increase that you would see. Any question?
I got confused at something here.
This is a confusing
Yeah, because
form.
what drove it? Okay, just the way it's worded here, maybe that's where. Did it go up that because we found out it was a state road? Did we drive, was the original cost 187,000 estimate to design, and then it drove it up to Is that an accurate
Oh, no, this is
statement?
your-
or-
187 is just for the design.
Okay, that's just for the design.
1.1
So,
is for design and construction.
okay, so we've gone up from about 800,000, at
That
one
is the
point,
cost of construction. So the process that they use for this is you are awarded the entire amount.
Okay.
But they only contract a portion at a time. So when you move from design phase to construction phase,
Mhm.
you have to sign another agreement, even though you've already accepted the
Yeah.
full funding. And so that's what that dollar amount represents, is moving from design to construction.
Gotcha. That makes sense.
so for this overlook though, we're looking at, I mean, it's gonna be over $1 million for that overlook.
And the road improvements and sidewalk.
Yeah,
All right. Anybody,
Please.
are we, okay,
I would
I'd
agree.
like to make a motion to approve the ratification of the local agency agreement supplement number 1 and revised project prospectus for the First Street project for a total project cost of $1,130,948, period.
Second, the first and second, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed?
no,
By the way, I mislabeled the title of this. It's not the Parks Plaza Commerce Grant, if you read anything.
Right, I did, I read that. I understand it. I was gonna ask that
So-
question, I was like,
Yeah.
wait a
That's what I
second.
do. Get my copy
Minimally-
pasting.
minimally, we read the agenda,
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
so, I
With
mean,
Well, no, when I
bold
went through
trouble,
the
but
the packet, I was like, this doesn't match.
Yeah, sorry.
Wait a
I
second.
just was like, where are we talking about that? Yeah. So this is an opportunity that, Commerce is encouraging people to apply by saying, hey, we still have money, hey, we still have money, hey, we still have money. And so, Washington Gorge Action Programs is a willing partner for this project, and so they will be the ones, in essence, the city's the pass-through. We're also a participant. But WAGAP will be the one leading the project, engaging a consultant and working on, in essence, getting all of the plans together and looking at the comprehensive plans and zoning and everything for the city and the county through the lens of homeless housing and how we can support the goals that are outlined in the county's plan.
would make a motion to authorize the mayor to sign the letter of commitment for the low income housing planning grant as presented.
Second.
First and a second, any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Dylan, you may update the screen.
No, I'm sorry. No one wants to keep looking at that. Well,
Here we go. They want to see our smiling faces, that's what they want. In case you missed me.
Carolyn?
Okay, so the next one's me. So for the past few meetings, we've talked about, equipment financing and how we're gonna get out from under, having to spend lots and lots of money anytime we want to use any of our equipment. So a few pieces were identified as, needing replacement. Our replacement schedule in 2024. Those being sweeper truck, dump truck, loader, and then a surface pickup as well. This loan would be a larger amount because we're saving, or we want to get into a position where we're saving enough that we can be able to buy the vehicle using, using funds. But we're never gonna get out from underneath a couple of these larger ticket items from where we are at now. So we decided to go for a low interest loan just to get out from underneath, to be able to start using equipment when we need it rather than having to fix it prior to using it. And so this loan would be that vehicle.
Mary, this is the local program you emailed that stuff.
Oh, okay, good.
That's what it is.
So any questions? There's a memo that talks about the different pieces of equipment and what they're used for and price ranges and the research done to date. We've been researching these for the last couple of years.
And there's two motions here.
Yeah, so one of them, thank you, one of them is the ordinance that says, yes, you can go ahead and buy the equipment, and I think it gives Liana like signing authority. And then the resolution is so we can purchase the equipment and vehicle prior to the money coming in July or June, whenever it's supposed to come in. So these are both template documents from the agency, so they do look a little bit different than probably what you're used to seeing.
Is there a total amount of all the equipment? I see the individual ranges.
Yeah, so the loan amount would be for 500,000. Obviously, we would want to come in under that.
We don't have to use the full amount, but we
Correct.
can't go over it.
Correct.
And that's how, like, it's like the range could be 75 to 250. We want to be around 100.
Yeah, exactly. Ideally, you know, part of the nice thing about doing it as a package with just like one large number is if something comes in a little bit lower, if something else comes in a little bit higher, doesn't really matter because it's the cumulative of all of them together.
What is the interest rate on the loan?
That would be determined, so what they do, or my understanding of what they do is they kind of get a group of loans together and then they finance them as a package. And so we won't know what the loan amount, or they won't know what the interest rate is until somebody buys the loan or
They bond.
Right.
is that, thank you.
It's a group bond.
I don't want to belabor this question. What's our total indebtedness that we have loans for this type of thing so far? I mean, how's that fit into the budget?
They have no loans. Back when it was $40,000 to replace a truck, we didn't need loans.
We took one off this week.
Oh, yeah, we did USDA for the sweeper. But that was
Which
paid off.
doesn't really,
What about the back
Which-
truck?
Yes.
What do we?
What about the what?
Back truck,
We used ARPA funds for the back truck.
right,
It
back
was a
truck was good.
sewer,
Yeah, we bought.
How much ARPA funds do we have left?
About 300,000. That would be a separate meeting. We can't use ARPA funds for this equipment because it's not specific to a utility. A Vector truck is specific to, like, I can.
Yeah.
It's easier
So,
to justify.
roads is not
Streets
considered.
do not qualify for ARPA funds. Unless there's a very specific instance related to a federal grant that, so it could buy a sweeper.
I barked up that tree too, and I was shut down as well, Dave.
Pardon?
I barked up that tree as well with Leon and got shut, or was educated on
The use
the use of
funds,
ARPA.
yes.
Mhm.
You know, this question has come up at previous council meetings a while back when there was a couple of years ago when there was for new equipment. One of the questions asked by one of the council members, and I've forgotten the answer, was like on the pickup. Well, what about, now I see this is a 2008 pickup. Okay, so that's pretty old because that's 24, so what is that, 16 years old? What about a used pickup with low mileage? Does that help? And I know, and I did listen to, you're talking about the maintenance and stuff at the previous meeting and how that was costly. Is there some point where it is more cost effective to buy like newer used? Is that an option?
All the equipment we're looking at acquiring is used except for the pickup, because we would like to be in a position with the fleet where we surplus them while they still have value,
Right.
so that we can get more than $3,000 for them when we surplus them. And that's what happens when we run them into the ground, is that we don't get anything back.
Probably lose that driving it right off the lot, though.
Well, but that's what she's saying. All the rest, like most of what was listed is all used prices that we're getting. We're not, like, if it was new, it would not be, we wouldn't be able to get all these for $500,000. So we are
Or less.
utilizing that option. So. You guys have more questions, or,
I don't know.
all right, I mean, for me, I'm ready to are you ready for a motion?
I'd
Sir?
entertain a motion at any time.
All right, I'd like to make a motion to approve the ordinance for authorization for the acquisition of personal property and execution of financing contract and related documentation relating to the acquisition of said personal property.
Second.
First and a second, any further discussion?
I would amend that to everything but the truck, pickup truck.
I'm confused. Meaning,
Meaning taking that off the table.
I didn't. How's the procedure work?
It's just,
Well, there's
the
a-
motion's been amended, so you now have to vote on the motion that was presented, and then you can bring it back up with the second motion. So,
Okay,
thing is, you had a
okay,
motion in a second, you need to vote on the motion in the second. If you
Okay.
Deny that, then you can renew your motion with the
okay,
exemption.
that makes sense. So you know where I'm going with, by asking that question, right, Dave?
Yeah.
Well,
Okay,
Michael can withdraw that motion
Yeah.
and withdraw the second, and we just go
Yeah.
back to square one.
that's what I prefer, but
Well, I could push it because it'd be 2-2, and then the mayor gets to pick it, but I will go ahead.
For money.
No, no,
No, it's just gonna stick, then I'll pull it back, I'll withdraw my motion.
okay, thank you.
How, what's the
What's
plan for
the-
replacing
Uh,
the fleet vehicle if it's not this way?
Pardon?
What would be the plan for, replacement of, fleet vehicles? Or just this
For the
one next year?
No.
The idea is to, again, be in a position where we have $150,000 so we can make that, change. I do not drive a fleet vehicle, by the way. Previous public works directors did. I do not.
So I guess what's your suggestion to amend this, Dave?
We can with the pickup.
We're just putting the pickup on hold?
Costs only go up.
I've got several things going through my head right now, so
We could review the pickup, take it off, vote on it, and review the pickup next time if there's more, if you
I would
realize.
prefer to do that.
Yeah, so it's not like we're only kicking the can down the road if we are a month.
The deadline is, 5th of April.
You have a deadline coming up, though.
It might be just what we strike. Well, I guess when we strike it here, we can put it back on.
You have the deadline for the loan.
Yeah, we have the deadline for the loan.
Well, you can still get the loan without us approving the purchase of the truck.
Yeah,
Maybe that's the way to do it.
yeah,
Approve the loan, but I am not gonna approve the purchase of a pickup truck right now.
We could
That's me.
add, so one of the things I noticed when I was drawing up all the paperwork is that you could put like a second person as a signer on the purchases, like part of this ordinance is giving authority for someone to make the purchase. So maybe the thing to do would be to amend the ordinance so it has another person.
that confuses it, I think. If we approve the 500, but put the pickup on hold as far as purchasing it, then you would meet that deadline, right? Of April 26th or whenever it was, right? So then that doesn't hurt. You get what I'm saying? So that would solve the problem, right? Because the deadline is on the loan amount, correct?
Yeah, but I think technically the ordinance is approval of the purchase.
Well, that's the thing, is if you approve an ordinance on a dollar amount, that's what you're stuck with. That's why you have to insert the dollar amount into the ordinance when it's recited.
Right, so what we're
So
saying,
you can insert the dollar amount into the ordinance.
And at no
Yeah.
point in this process have we had to submit to them a list of items. that we're
Items for
purchasing.
purchase.
Yeah, so,
You're just getting, you just have a loan amount here. You don't have any list of there's no indication what you're purchasing with that money right there.
In the ordinance itself.
No, the ordinance doesn't, you just listed the personal property.
But it's like, what about the agreement on the back?
That's what I'm going.
Did you make mention?
Anyway, I didn't see a list of property and there, it just says property.
So, let's, Oh, my, I did not know.
Acquire the property on behalf of and as agent of the Washington Finance Officers Association.
It's in the resolution.
And that's what it says. It says whereas about the fourth paragraph down. The local agency will,
Yeah, to acquire the property.
right? There is no
I'm looking for
indication.
the definition. Then find the NOI was.
You know, why has the list of the items for
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the thing is it's defined in the NOI. Is it in the NOI?
all the numbers, yeah, all the,
It's exhibit
it's
A.
all listed.
Well, you can have it in the NOI. It doesn't mean that we need to have to purchase it.
I'm not worried about it, us making a purchase without, getting council approval. I think that's something that we can do. I was just suggesting that maybe there's a check-in.
However, to do that, however to do it, I don't care. However, to have to where you're not authorized to get the pickup, you have to come back to the council for permission to do that. Right, would that satisfy what you're saying? In other words,
And at the time they come back, maybe we can come up with something
yeah,
that's
okay. So I
a
don't,
lot less money.
so however that motion goes, whatever you.
The NOI does list the dump truck. And the truck, sweeper truck, dump truck, loader, utility pickup vehicle.
Yeah.
So we're asking what Jay, I mean, I'm not saying I don't agree, because all the expenses have come back at this point to council to, hey, we're looking at this. So is there a way to
Have a caveat in there to where on the pickup,
on the pickup?
you have to also take a second step of getting council approval on it. We're going to do it.
You have to have approval to spend money. You don't have to have approval not to spend money. So
Right.
Yeah,
that's
I
the
get
thing
what
is
you're
if you
saying.
make this motion and then
Yeah.
next week you decide you're going with the truck, you don't have it.
Yeah.
Cause you agreed to spend this money
Okay, well.
on this personal property. So from
Well, I'm not saying that we're not gonna spend the money on a service truck. It's just, I'm not willing to drop $100,000 on a pickup truck right now.
Well,
You can still
so,
shop.
so $100,000 is a fully outfitted pickup truck. And that's
With
just
the
what we paid
plow
for one
last year.
last year. I mean, that's the going rate. I don't know that costs are gonna come down.
Actually, it might be a little bit less this year than last year, but not appreciably so. I'd be like 85 this year.
They're not gonna be 40 again.
Last century place.
Oh, I think Rob.
I was gonna say that.
Correct. He recently purchased a truck for the district.
Hey, sorry for butting in and sorry for all the text messages, guys. I've been trying to get your attention a little bit.
Okay.
I want to just chime in my experience of buying pickups through state bid. I bought one for the fire district in 2021 and it was 47,000 before tax, I think 52 with tax. I just bought one that was a standard cab, not the crew cab. And I think the bill come out to 67,000. So they're not going down. And if you bought the truck for 100,000 recently, it's not going to be under 100,000 now. It's going to be more. So if you wait, you're going to probably be paying more. So
Well, hey, you were lucky if you got it off the state contract. We couldn't get it off of it.
yeah,
last
I
year.
slipped into the order window. So, and that even, I was forced to look at retail because we were in an emergency situation with our rig that I'm replacing right now. And I was going to go up to pay 80,000 retail off of a lot. So luckily I got into state bid. So just to give some input on recent purchases for municipal vehicles.
Thanks, Rob.
Thanks, Rob.
Michael, if you wanna restate your motion, go right ahead.
Yeah, all right. I'd like to make a motion to approve the ordinance for authorization for the acquisition of personal property and execution of financing of a financing contract with related documentation relating to the acquisition of said personal property, period.
Second.
First and a second, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I'm gonna abstain.
All right, I'd like to make
Wait.
another motion.
Can we do that?
Yeah, you get 3-1.
Yeah, we
You
three
got
one,
3-1.
3-0,
Opposed.
3-0.
No, it was 3. 3-1,
Yeah.
then abstain.
And then I'd like to make another motion, if that's all right with everybody. I'd like to make a motion to approve resolution requesting reimbursement for personal property purchased ahead of the closing of the financial contract period.
Second. You got it, you got it.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I'll abstain.
All right, so,
We put some of these on the next agenda.
you know, it's the funny thing, I was just gonna bring that up. No, because I'm looking at the rest of this agenda going, holy smokes, it's 9. So, I will leave. You guys tell me what you would like to table.
Yeah.
I would like to. move
Although,
that
wait a
we-
minute, before I go too far with that, there was something on here that looked like it was timely, the RCO.
That's gonna be on the next agenda anyway.
So that doesn't
This is
have to
just,
happen
in
tonight?
essence, like a first
Yeah.
Right.
reading.
All right, so suggest a way.
I'd like to move that we continue this at our next meeting,
Are you
Following
talking about the
agenda-
25th or are you talking about the May meeting?
May meeting.
May?
the following agenda items?
So that would be,
From items F down, is that correct?
through
Yep.
I.
Through I, and then we'll still have the.
I was gonna be on the 25th.
Okay,
But not.
yeah, what's I'm saying, F through I can be not tonight.
Okay,
And just for the record, I may not be here on the 25th.
How can they?
Right.
all right, you do have some informational items in your packet.
Yep.
Staff. It's 9:07.
Okay, moving forward, pretty quickly. So it is grant season. That's what happens a lot of time in, the spring. So we are working toward, the RCO grant, for the plaza, project, specifically for the splash pad, the children's play area. It's, included in the design part of the project. We'll talk more about that at the next meeting. If we don't move forward with that, at the next meeting, we'll also talk about potentially moving forward with an acquisition project for public easements that have been identified in several of our recent plans, connecting downtown waterfront to Rock Creek. So trying to advance that project in some way. Also working to assemble funding for Lasher Street as a road improvement, corridor improvement there, sidewalk, addressing some speeding issues or traffic calming issues on that and fire life safety issues. So hope to move forward there. If we move forward with one of the grant programs, you should expect that to come on a future agenda. For
Carolyn?
Just trying to find you that interest rate from the last one. Because it got better in 24. than it did in 23. Okay, so, in water, Department of Health has already declared a drought. So that's fun for the year. It sounds like I'm gonna have to develop a shortage plan as well as do some community education in the coming months. Our long-term water supply project is somewhat stalled as we wait for EPA approval of our quality assurance plan. PFAS, it's a new rule that EPA put out, not that new because we saw it coming and we have been working on trying to get our sample done that last year, maybe it was the year prior. Department of Health came out with a program. I was gonna put all this in an email to you, Pat. And
No, I get it now.
but they said anyone who signs up, you can get PFAS sampling done at no cost to you, so we signed up. And then they went and did high risk communities first, and ours is not one. High risk communities would be folks where their watershed contains an airport or a fire department testing facility or something like that. So we're considered we're considered low risk. So high points from that rule is compliance with monitoring by 2027, compliance with any maximum contaminant level by 2029. So it was a great question. I will get something put out on Facebook to inform the community of kind of where we sit and all that. But thanks for bringing that up, Pat. Wastewater, the Cascade Avenue utility improvement design kicked off with Grayling. We did a site walkthrough with Public Works Board, who is our funding agency, this afternoon. We started an intern from Mill A. His name's Matthew. He's working at the sewer plant about 6 hours a week for the next 7. Our pump station project is kicking along. Fairground pump station is they're getting out of the ground, and so they've started up Kanaka. We've been communicating regularly with the port, and those communications will definitely need to go up as they're seeing increased visitation with the salmon run. Wastewater treatment plants moving along. They're starting to demob and do a lot of cleanup, so we're in good shape there. I don't have anything on stormwater for streets. Folks have probably noticed that some of the wayfinding signs have been going up. There was a question that came up about the paint quality, so we're reviewing that with the vendor currently. Our first street project is out for construction bid. Pre-bid meeting the 1st, opening the 9th of May. So with any luck, that contract will be on your May agenda for approval. Like I was saying before, there's an opportunity to get additional funding, so we're pursuing that. We helped out with the Columbia Gorge Running Club. That's their St. Patty's Day run. We helped with some traffic control for them. And just as a note, we got a comment about the free right turn sign on Oak and Shepherd. So we're going to be removing that. It doesn't seem like it's appropriate for a local street with decreased visibility and no protected space for pedestrians. There's no sidewalks on those local streets. So that sign's going to go down. It'll be just a stop sign. We're hosting the TIB funding workshop here for the region, middle of June. The Lasher Street Sidewalk project, we are moving that forward, and we're working on getting all the funding pieces together. We talked a lot about equipment just now. Parks, Spruce Up Stevenson, they said that's next weekend. So as part of that part of that effort, I've got 2 public works guys coming in, and myself, I will participate. Walnut Park is going to get a bit of a facelift. There's some overgrown bushes that will be removed, weeding, bed cleaning, some pruning of the walnut tree and also the cherry tree in there. First, Second Street planters and tree wells, the First Street pathway to the waterfront, and then all the miscellaneous street appurtenances will be cleaned. Did anyone notice the new bush by the City Hall sign? Nobody? That was repurposed from the Kanaka pump station, so that cost us nothing except for an hour of John Schultz time getting it up here. So as that location continues to get excavated, there will be more bushes by our City Hall sign that are being repurposed from the pump station project. Thanks to Doug at the port for that suggestion. Our staff attended safety training for hearing protection last week. And we had a contractor meeting as well as a utilities coordination meeting in April. Both of them were successful, a lot of good conversation. We're looking forward to the second quarter contractor meeting, which will be like the end of June. I had a right-of-way management question. I have to keep kicking that one down the road, but I'm gonna need to definitely have that at the next meeting. We've been working well with the PD lately. We're trying to figure out how to take their new water treatment plant backwash at our wastewater treatment plant. So Deanna and I have been trying to figure out how we can do that. Be a good neighbor and make a little bit of extra revenue. We've also started including the PUD with our building permit reviews. So with the club permit, we're able to kind of kick out those applications, and PUD can weigh in at that time. Maybe there'll be less conflicts with utilities in doing that. And building permits are definitely starting to come in. People are rolling. That's what I have.
Quick question on Walnut Park, is there the moss that's on those stones on those pavers, is there, sometimes moss is protected, I don't know, but is there a reason why, whether volunteer or otherwise, that the moss is there a reason not to pressure wash that, whether it's volunteers do it or not, on that moss that's all over those pavers?
There has been talks of that, but the biggest drawback is that it undermines what's holding them up. So
Okay.
you'll get this irregular face. So Ben actually had a really good idea, because Jenny has her name on. Yeah, pretty sure that those names are lost to time, but we have a plan. We want to make a plaque so that those names live in perpetuity, maybe just not on those.
I think one thing too is that the pressure wash with those bricks, it'll probably cut right into those bricks.
Yeah, okay.
When you do that.
The reason not to pressure wash.
Yeah.
There's several, the reason not to try to clean moss in some way. I think it's just lack
Yeah.
of.
I don't want to delay the meeting, I just thought it'd come up and I thought there might be a reason not to, because the impulse would be that.
Right, first
you know,
one's helping.
yeah. Okay.
Thanks for the question.
You know,
Park Plaza open house was on Tuesday. About 40 people attended. The survey is open. It's on the city website on a banner with the link, and it will close on the 30th. And then we'll see what the survey says. There'll probably be an additional workshop at the county to discuss that, and we'll go from there. And also, yes, the initial cost is over what we budgeted. It was a conscious decision not to value engineer it to 3.2 million until we received feedback from the community as far as what was important. So what is presented can be brought down to 3.2. But again, we're waiting to see what's important to the community to determine what steps will be taken to bring it back down to 3.2.
Well, doesn't make sense to engineer
do
it
that
down,
twice.
engineer down when the community hasn't bought into it yet.
Right. Working on public records requests, as well as we'll be receiving a visit from the archives office to help us identify and then process records to then upload to Laserfiche. So they'll help us with figuring out how to best classify it so that it's easier to search. And so then we'll have a public portal for the public to then search those records. McEd had a strategic plan for, it's not related to SEDS, it's not related to any of the projects or just the region's economic development. It was related to McEd as an organization. And so it'll be good to kind of see where that goes. And then also just reviewing the community survey as well as council priorities for alignment and the next steps for those. And so that'll be we'll discuss the council strategic plan at the next council meeting on April 25th. That's all I got.
thank you. I would entertain a motion to approve the vouchers.
I move to approve the vouchers as presented.
Second.
No, first and a second, is there any discussion?
I
All in favor, say aye.
I,
don't want to get out of here.
Anybody have anything for the greater good?
Those interest rates, in October 23, they came at just under 4, and the ones that were in February were like 2.5. So hopefully we'll get a good rate as well.
I want to invite you all to the Stevenson Grange Plant and Seed Swap this Saturday, 10 to 2. If you don't have anything to swap, you can just bring yourself and then.
And your money.
take something home. No money exchanged hands. And then next year, you are obligated to bring back some seeds. So 10 to 2 at the library, and I will have some walnut trees and some little chestnut trees. And lots of hens and chicks and other things, so.
All right.
Come on back.
Mary?
Thank you, Mary.
The last thing, is there anything that you would like to see on the agenda next month?
I think it's pretty.
Meeting adjourned.